he couldn't fucking play the drums because his fucking drug dealer didn't have weed and he was sober.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Brian Granik is not only a fantastic person, but he was also super involved in the Jersey scene back in the late 90s. He was promoting shows. He was a part of Umbilical Records with Stein. He played in Houseboy and Five Driver. And he was always the guy in the front row of shows pointing that sweet finger up in the air when he sang along. Now, he was very hesitant for a good amount of time to be on this podcast, which bummed me out because I really wanted to talk to Brian because I knew he would have some great stories from back then. And luckily, one day he reached out on Facebook. I think it was after listening to Laura Ladishev's / Laura Stuss's interview, and he said, okay, man, I listened to that. I think he listened to a couple other ones and said, like, this seems kind of cool. I'll do this. And in that moment, the stars aligned, and I was very fucking happy. Because I knew that it was going to be something special, and I was completely fucking right. Now, a lot of people listening to this probably will not know who Brian is, but you might have heard of Umbilical Records. You may have heard of Houseboy. You may have heard of Five Driver. You may have been to one of his shows back then, if you lived in New Jersey. People outside of New Jersey, again, the beginning list I just stated, you'd probably maybe have heard of some of those, but you also may not know him. And that's the beauty of this podcast, because there's a nice balance of bands and promoters and record labels and blah, 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 blah that people will know, which is awesome because I get to geek out on asking them questions. And then there's the other side where there's people that I'm friends with that I just want to shoot the shit with and talk about that time, which is exactly what this is. Now, this is a 3-hour long conversation, which is totally fucking worth it, and I loved listening to it. I'm going to listen to it again when this launches today, I'm recording this the day before, but it's very fucking great. Please give it all of your time and listen to it because it's fantastic. So we had a few drinks, and we got on Skype, and this is what we talked about. Going to school with other NJ punk rockers, his thoughts on the scene itself, working at Hot Topic in the Rockaway Mall, how Modesty Panel's record got funded, White Powder Donuts, Comp, David Bettino, and a ton fucking more. Super quick before I get started, go check out House of Merch, which is run by Sean from Lane Meyer, my old drummer and my sweet, sweet friend. You can find a ton of band apparel on there. You can get something for yourself, something for your spouse. You can get something for your kids. So go check it out. The prices are super low compared to the other websites out there. And you can take an extra 10% off by using the promo code SCENE, SCENE. And you also get free shipping. So you should go do that. Again, 10% off, promo code SCENE, free shipping. houseofmerch.com. Go do it. If you haven't tuned in to watch one of the Quarantune's live streams on the NJPP Facebook group, you have been missing the fuck out. Performers have included a number of people who have been interviewed on the podcast, including myself. The next live stream is next Friday, May 22nd, beginning at 8 p.m. Musical guests include Jeff from Mother Mania, Jonah from Far and One Line Drawing, Mikey Erg, Shane from Valencia, John from Dead Bars, the archivist himself, I like how Jay wrote that, Joe Polito, Chris Schultz, Chris, I don't know how to say your last name, buddy, I'm sorry, from Suicide Pact, and Mike of Harrison Ford Mustang. You're not going to want to miss this one. Tune in by joining the North Jersey Pop Punk 1994 to 2002 Facebook group or by visiting the NJPP Archives YouTube channel. Trust me, this is a great fucking time. You're going to love it, and it gives you something to do for like 3 hours. So get a drink, get some food, do Apple TV or whatever you do, connect your computer to your TV or just have your laptop out in front of you like I typically do, and you'll have a fucking blast. Thank you again, all the Patreon supporters. You help this thing keep going. All of you are fucking great, and all the people who also donate are fucking fantastic, and the people who have bought merch as well. I do apologize for the delay in merch getting to you because obviously fulfillment is at a bit of it's a little slow these days due to this fucking virus going around. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but every dollar helps keeping this podcast alive. Again, becoming a Patreon for $1 a month giving a donation or whatever you want, or even buying merch is fantastic. You can also help out by telling everyone you know. You can go follow the Instagram account, which is This Was The Scene. You could also follow the Facebook page, which is This Was The Scene. I don't really do much on Twitter because Twitter kind of blows my ass. But follow any one of those socials. And that's all I got to say. Feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. Now I'm recording. Brian.
Oh, right.
Granik.
I hope you're ready to fucking work today, buddy.
I typically will try not to have a few beers. Oh, okay, I can't say that. I've had a few episodes where I've quickly gone to the bar where I usually will go after work and have I'll limit it and I'll come home and make sure I'm good. But I might throw that out the window because because usually I have to kind of stay sharp with some people, a lot of interviews, because I'm researching them and shit. But this is talking to an old friend. It's way easier to stay, to just pull shit out and remember.
Yeah, dude. Trust me, nobody's gonna give a flying fuck about this one, man. So don't even worry about it, dude. I'm I usually have I have green tea twice a day because my liver's all fucked because I've just been drinking for the last 25 years straight. Like
a champ.
And so I moved to England and I started getting on this kick and I was about to have my green tea and I'm wait a second, I'm about to fucking talk to Mike Doyle. Let me put a shot of whiskey in that shit. So I've already gotten started, man. I'm 30 minutes in, but only one shot.
You're in England right now?
No. I lived over there for a year. I have dual citizenship. I'm in Bisbee, Arizona right now, actually, just living in a van.
Yeah, tell me about this. So the last I heard.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone listening, this is Brian Granik. Brian, this
Hello.
is going to be a great episode for everyone who grew up in the Jersey scene. Anyone outside of the scene, you should keep listening because I'm sure this is going to be epic just knowing Brian. And the stories he'll tell are just, Brian is a treat to chat with because I'm sure you're going to have amazing things to say. Brian doesn't agree with that.
We're starting off on the third left foot on that one, dude.
Out of all of the interviews I've done, I'm very excited to talk to you. Even though you don't think so, I've wanted to talk. I think I've tried to connect with you for the last 6 months, maybe, or through Sean. I've been telling Sean, and Sean's been relaying it to you, and you're like, nah.
Yeah, I mean, dude, no offense, but it's 20 years ago, and and it was weird. Last night was the first night where I was kind of fucking rolling around, actually thinking about the interview for the first time. I mean, I've had a couple of moments where I'm whatever, regular human emotional anxiety crap. And then last night was the first night where I was oh shit, wait, I can't really talk about what I've been doing the last 20 years. I have to talk about the 90s. And I was oh fuck, man, I hope Doyle has a lot of questions for me, man. Cause it's full of fucking hops and bong water since then. So,
well, I think, no, you'll remember things. I have a pretty clear view of things. I mean, I remember it the way I remember it. I did an interview with Benny from Gaslight because he used to do a lot of shows, which I didn't know until, I forget who told me. I think it was Ricky who told me about Benny used to do a ton of Manville Elks Lodge shows. That was his jam. So when I got interviewed him, we talked for 2 hours about just that time. But we had a break between, there was the first hour, and then he had to jump off, so that we caught up again a week later and continued it. And in between, he's I read something that people's memories from back then a lot of times can be bullshit because it's just the way that you perceive it. He's so we could be completely making all of this up, but that's just the way we saw it. And I was huh.
Yeah. No, I dabbled in listening to a few of them. Obviously, I picked and choosed the ones that related to me, obviously a little bit more selfishly, but I did. I listened to a lot of them, and it's funny because I'll go off on a tangent for a second. Obviously, me and Shawnee.
Do it, Shawnee.
We obviously have been keeping in touch over the last 20 years pretty significantly, and I actually was just talking to him, not about this, but luckily since this is being pre-recorded, I can now say, haha, Sean, I kept it from you. and he'll hear it a week or whenever you publish it down the road. But
he'll know on Monday or not Monday, but the Monday before yours comes out when I do my teaser. He'll text me and be like, "Holy shit!"
All right, cool. Because I've been pretty good. I've told a few people. I mean, I talked to Laura. We'll get into that, and Jay, and had a couple of drunken nights talking overnight about how I'm going to do it, and just had some laughs about it. But Sean constantly would say the same thing about you, and other people have said it, that you've just got this fucking crazy memory of all kinds of stuff. And I was thinking, like, I've always had kind of like that kind of picture photographic memory where like it's all snapshots for me. It's not really like my days turned into weekends most of the time. We were all hanging out back then, or weeks or fucking months, and it was like one long day, and then I would like go off and do my own thing for a month or two, and then we'd get back to it. So like my memories are like month-long memories, which we don't have really time for in this podcast, but I'm just stoked to kind of see it from your point of view. Actually, I'm kind of curious, like, what you think about what I say. I'm kind of looking forward to like you saying, no, that's not fucking how it happened, Granik.
Well, there was, in Laura's interview, she talked about how she helped us with the Congress of Cow van. And she said, there's little things. And she goes, yeah, we picked it up at night. And I go, no, it was during the day. And she goes, no, it was at night. And I was like, I know you're wrong. And then Barker texted me. He's like, yeah, it was at night. And I was like, okay, so there are certain things that I definitely get details wrong about. But I think also I remember a lot of it. And I've said it a few times, I took a lot of pictures back then. And I have a crate full of every Lane Meyer tour. So I always can pull that stuff out. But there's pictures from the Wayne Firehouse, from fucking West Orange. There's just us hanging out drinking. So I think that's probably why. And also in that time period when I was taking these photos, I'd put them up on my wall. So it's almost like when you constantly have something in front of your face, I think it becomes cemented there. So I think when I'm going back in time, I can remember that. But at the same time, my dad, before he passed away, his memory was insane. And I think I got that from him. So which has been very helpful with this, because I could be completely wrong, but at least it's entertaining, and this is like going to be episode 96, 97.
Yeah, I didn't make 100. Fuck, man, I was hoping I made 100.
I was thinking about who was going to put 100. I was like, I think I should put Granik as 100. I don't think he'd appreciate that.
Man, I couldn't care less, but it would have been funny as hell, dude.
So I remember, I remember a bunch of stuff, and I'll bring them up again. Like I remember your Nobody show. I remember the Aquabat show. I remember there's a picture I have in Bigwig where I think you broke your leg or your foot when you were on your boxcar maroon shirt, and Bigwig was playing with that Weston show at Booton, and you're leaning down and holding your foot, and I thought you like broke it or sprained your ankle.
Oh, maybe what I was doing was going to reach really low down so I could pick my hand all the way up in the air and put my finger up in the air. Maybe I was like cocking and locking for a really good Granik fucking finger in the air.
the finger in the air, the point back. Classic. But
yeah, I was real fat back then too. You wouldn't even recognize me, man. Now I'm heroin chic, but not literally. Fuck, man. Yeah, there's a lot of memories. I think the Aquabat show. All right, so real quick, obviously, the beauty of not doing it live is you can edit whatever the fuck you want. I hope you can keep a lot of this shit in.
I keep everything, unless you tell me that you slip up and you forgot you didn't want something to go in, like it all stays in. So
yeah, there's absolutely nothing. I can pretty much say that at the very beginning here, that even if there's no shit that I'm going to talk that I could care less about you putting in. So fuck it,
Okay.
But the Aquabats was definitely Laura. I don't think Laura.
Oh,
and
yes.
We might have teamed that one up, but so to go to Laura, like I gotta start off with Laura because I love that fucking chick. She's so awesome. And she called me when she was doing her interview, and I heard her talk about me in hers, and she called me, and I was hungover as shit, and I was in my van down in Florida. I just started like my kind of living in a van trip, which I'm on now.
Yeah.
And and she called me up all fucking nervous like Laura does. And we talked for like an hour plus. And I was just laying in my bed and I'm like, Laura, just fucking, talk. Who gives a shit? Like, nobody's going to care. Like, people are just going to love listening to you talk. And then when I agreed to do this, I was like, oh, fuck, I know what she was going through now. So I get it. I have empathy for the people that are doing the interviews in general, because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And, anxiety as a human being is just pretty natural.
I don't know what the anxiety is about, though. I think granted, my muscle for this is built pretty well, but prior to this, I've just conversed with people so much between my business and networking and doing coffees and being interested in doing another podcast and being interviewed on podcasts. Plus, I just really and then I think the many years of getting in front of people and playing shows, and even as a kid in high school doing plays and crap. So I love this stuff. It doesn't really connect with me that other people freak out about it.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. Like, I mean, I've played in bands and shit. Like when we were kind of doing, like when I was doing shows and shit back in the 90s, I wasn't really playing in bands that much.
No.
I mean, I had side projects and stuff like that, but they were never see, my fucking style of music. Like I told Sean this, I loved you guys and I loved the people and I loved the scene and the camaraderie. And I was a fucking nerd in Solomon Schechter and Josh and Gabe, where we were like, there was like four of us that kind of like, that was it. So I was like super, not antisocial, but I was like just the fat fucking punk that like in Jew school, and I never really had a lot of friends. So like, obviously the scene was my family, and I didn't, not that I don't love them now, but I didn't really get along with my family at all. And like, had really like no real fucking connection with anybody, when I was younger, except the scene. And so for me, it wasn't even really about the music and me loving the actual bands. Like, no offense to you guys or anything. It wasn't about so much about the music. It happened to be that the scene was close, like the style of music and the pop punk that was going on while I was doing shows was close enough to what I was into that I could relate to it in some way and like have some connection with it. So like for me, I don't even know what the fuck I was just saying. It's just like
I want to start there actually, because usually I'll talk about how people got in a like what song got them into it and like what got into punk rock. But like I think I want to bypass that, because I think that this is going to be a big conversation about us remembering that time. So I almost like wanted, I don't want to be lame and be like, let's jump into that. But I want to talk, but I do want to talk about that time period when we met, because it's kind of like covering the whole scene, because you were very outgoing. So it's amazing. It surprises me that you're saying you didn't have friends in your school.
Yeah. I mean, I still adhere to that. And I think that like it's weird, man. Like all right. So with all this, we might as well fucking bring it up now. This coronavirus fucking chaos.
And real quick, you got a little wind hitting your mic there.
Yeah. I'm gonna move into my van. It's super windy. I'm like 6,000 in elevation. And it's fucking windy when they move into my van.
And I do want to talk about this because I'm amazed by your lifestyle. I'm absolutely amazed.
Yeah, dude. Like, I mean, I've always been able to be like the weirdo in school that got along. Like, I just got along with everybody in school, but I didn't like actually like anybody. Let's put it that way.
I can see that.
Yeah. Like, and I was always able to be like kind of a chameleon and just like, and just kind of hide when the times were necessary to do it. And I've always been social, and like, I've had no problems like talking to people, and people just interest me, man. Like for real. Like they just like, I just love fucking weirdos. And so this coronavirus craziness is kind of hard, because I do like going to the bars, and I do like meeting like new people. And I just kind of like the personality of the human being, in general.
Yeah.
So I was always like artistic in school, and I always like, I always fucking dug like just the difference in humans. But like I realized real quickly, especially in high school, that I was a punk rocker and attitude, man. I mean, I fucking, started listening to skate punk and skating and fucking ska and, no effects and hardcore and metal. And I just realized that there was an attitude to that I grasped onto like real fast, which is cliche because everybody, that's pretty easy to say, but like, I just could like totally relate to that type of person. So that's like where the whole scene and wanting to do the scene thing came from. I always had the personality in me and like wanting to shoot the shit with people, but the scene was an easy transition for me because I could put that into something that I like gave a shit about, like other people hating the system and hating, the fucking jocks and all of that stuff. And like that all just like fell into place when it came to like doing punk rock shows with, starting with Laura, of course. But
well, tell me about like how, because growing up, Jay Blanda or Jay Jerkoff for the people who heard his interview. God, who else? Ben Jorgensen. I talked to him. I think there's been a few interviews I did, but a lot of you guys went to the same school or camp. There was a camp you guys all went to. So I want to like go back to that because that transitioned you getting involved in the scene, right? And going to shows or learning about it.
Yeah. So basically, like that memory is actually like shit that happened. It was Solomon Schechter in West Orange. So I listened to little bit of Josh's interview, Scott Dicker, and yeah, like it basically, it started in Solomon Schechter. I mean, that's where it really started. Like there was, Josh was a grade older than me and I was in Gabe's grade, Supporta. So me and Gabe, and there was another kid, Oren. There was literally like 5 of us.
That's an OL
like
Rebellion, 6. Oren. Or a different
no.
Oren. Oh, he was younger. That's right. My bad.
Yeah, different Oren. Oren. This kid. This is actually the kid that like he gave me shit. He had like a no effects sticker on something, and I didn't really know what that was all about yet. And I would ask him, and he would kind of like give me shit. He was such a fucking prick about it. And so because he was such a prick, I was like, I got to find out what this shit's all about. So I kind of went off on my own to kind of deep dive into like records and CDs, and I would just spend hours like just in my room, just like fucking opening CDs up and reading the lyrics. And I was like super into the lyrics, and obviously the speed was like huge for me. Like I love thrash and like I liked it fast. And
why the lyrics though? Why the lyrics? Tell me about that.
Well, just kind of what I was saying before. I mean, dude, like there was just something that it was like people, I got to read these lyrics from people that I didn't fucking know, that I was like, yeah, yes, that's exactly how I feel about the world.
Okay.
And I just like got really deep into, lyrics were huge for me and always still are. That's kind of why, like, I'm not, no offense, like I'm not a gigantic fan of like pop punk or like I'm not.
Or Chris Barker songs. I totally get it. You like mine better.
All right, you fucking said it, man. Here we go, dude.
And we're off.
And again, like to go back, I loved you guys and I loved the people. So that like fuck the music, like that didn't matter. But I didn't relate. I couldn't take that home with me as much as I could take home like punk rock, like harder political stuff. Fuck the system stuff. That was like really just something because I was just hated school. Juice school was like super strict and I was getting picked on and bullied all the time in school. And I just like got a lot of angst like through high school. Like high school gave me like kind of gave me my thick shell that like I take now. And then the scene was my family where I could outlet all that shit.
You know, I want to relate to that for a second because I was a skinny kid until I broke my leg in 4th grade, and then I vegged on my couch for 8 weeks and became this fat kid. And I was like 5'3", and this is pudgy kid. And so from 5th grade up until about 10th grade, I think it was 10th grade. Yeah, I was like this. I was a chubby kid, and I can relate. Like I was so picked on, and I was so. I like how you said it created that tough skin. Like I feel like I've brought that to this day. I'm 40 years old and I still have that tough skin because I know how to look at people picking on people. Now I can understand it more where it's like really just them dealing with a lot of issues and I could see it more from a different perspective. But I that was the thing that drove me to the scene too, is when I got there, it was so accepting, where I was like, man, I've been shit on for so long, that once you go to a place where they were like, you can be as crazy looking as possible and everyone's equal. And I was like, this is the greatest. I've been looking for this for so long.
Yeah. And then, but again, though, then my ADD kicked in and I realized that this is kind of cliquey too. There was just moments of that also, even in the scene.
Oh yeah.
So,
absolutely. That came about.
You know what I'm saying? And so the people that have stayed with me, through these years that I can catch back up with, it's a very small handful of people. Even you, dude. I can think about catching up right now and just think about. I even thought about how easy it was going to be to just talk to you in general, and there's not too many of those from the scene itself. I know the whole podcast is about that, and I mean, there's no names to be named. It's just in general that as I got through it and started getting through it, I started realizing I got to do my own thing, and the people that want to come along and do it with us are going to be the ones that are your true friends. And that became more important to me than the scene in general. And Laura being one. I mean, I can rattle off a handful, 5 to 10 right now.
Sure.
That could easily. I'm not going to. But yeah, that I just couldn't I don't really care less. I couldn't care less about the scene itself. That doesn't. It molded me to be to actually have confidence in the world. That's definitely what it did for me. But the business and all that shit, it can all take a walk for me. Honestly,
yeah.
I don't really care about any of that stuff. It's the family, it's the connections that I made, and the confidence that I gained to be able to know that I could pretty much do anything because we were doing it on our own. We were just doing everything by ourselves.
Well, that was the thing. I don't think of the scene as Warped Tour and later on it was Skate and Surf and all the glam and the glitz and all that bullshit. I liked it as I see it as rough, not rough, but as just stripped down as being in a Legion Hall. We're all just kind of sitting around. In the beginning, no one really knows each other, and your arms are folded and you're watching a band, but then you automatically connected with someone because you both knew a lyric to a band playing. And then all of a sudden the two of you started talking afterwards. In between, you go out and smoke butts and be like, hey, what's going on? Oh, I love that song. So there was that glue there. And that's what I loved. And then you come back, you'd see them again, and everyone was excited. And then everyone would go to the diners, and it was. You're right. It was that family element. It was that acceptance. It was just friends element. And then later on, when it started becoming more, and I don't want to go too far into it, but when it started becoming, we can, it got into bands' heads when they would show up, and people celebritize them, or they became a thing and there was a separation that was built in that. Or just when it becomes too corporatized, it loses its purity or authenticity, and that's where the soul of it goes away. And I think that's what eventually killed it, because that's just human nature. It grows too big, too many people get involved, too many ideals, and it gets away from everyone. But that's why I like talking initially about that whole 96 to 99 era, because that was before all that blew up, and it was just us showing up and hanging out. And then afterwards going to I'd be at a party and you'd be at Patino's, and it would just be 5 of us hanging out and just being idiots. It was the best fucking time. I loved it.
Yeah, and I still do that.
Same.
I mean, that's still the most fun that I have. I mean, I fucking saw Pennywise a month and a half ago in Florida, and the arm in arm with friends that I made. I mean, I have a scene in Florida. I played in a band called Gonad Rehab down there, and a fucking hardcore punk rock band, and I fucking love all that. And I made my own little scene down in Florida, and those dudes are my best friends, and we go to shows and arm in arm, and I'm in the pit and pay for it for fucking 3 days. I still do that shit, man. I don't give a shit. I'm gonna be doing that until I can't. I mean, that is who I am, and the scene was the start of it, I guess. But maybe I was already that person before the scene, and maybe the scene, I don't know.
You were. You're already that person. You're already that that's why I think people are so confused, is because when they're in high school, and it sometimes it's dawned on me lately of how much I live in that past. 20 years later in my 40s, I'm focused so much on that. And granted, it's not like keeping me from progressing in life, but I just like in this moment I get to like live back then. So it's like I get to feel like I'm fucking 16, 17 years old again. But like, lost my train of thought. Like,
it's all right. I was just gonna say, we're your vitamin S, dude, and your vitamin C. You just you just take the multivitamin C every day, and we're actually like the vitamins for you, dude.
Well, but it's like, but it taught us. Okay, that's what my point. When we were younger, again, kind of relating to how we felt like outcasts in high school. I think we felt that because there was this thing happening around us as kids, where I think we felt there was something else we should be doing, or something that we just couldn't connect with the bullshit in school. Like, I remember growing up, my older sister, she's 5 years older than me. So I saw the path that she was in. That's when football games were cool, and she was hanging out with her friends and going to pool halls, and like being popular was cool. So I saw that from a distance, and as I'm going up, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get into that. And then when I broke my leg and became a fat kid, all of a sudden I became very apparent that I wasn't going to be going there. And I saw how shitty I was treated by the people there. And I'm like, I don't think I buy into this anymore, but I don't really know where I fit. And I think we all kind of got that, but then we walked through the doors of a Legion Hall, and all of a sudden in that moment it was, I think I'm here. I think this is that thing that I have always wanted to be a part of. And then it was like, okay, every time this is happening, I'm going to one of these fucking shows. This is where I need to be.
Doyle, I have a feeling you use the word epic a lot in your life these days.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, fucking A, man. I mean, yeah, we could probably talk about that relation for sure forever, just that connection. And like, obviously everybody, like, you guys had the Jefferson crew, and and I listened to a couple of podcasts with all them, and like Beichel and all those dudes. Yeah. And like, yeah. And I listen, it was fun to like kind of pick a couple of the podcasts and listen to it all. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I would just love for all of us to be able to just like have a fucking like 4-day weekend somewhere in the woods with like everybody that it was part of every different scene, and no cops, Well,
I'm still friends with all those guys, like me, Bob, Price, Barker, Heiner, Woosley, Luch, Justin, Boyce. Like we all still like, we've gone to weddings and bachelor parties, and a couple of us like have, we talk on Facebook a lot. And so we carried that through to this. But yeah, I mean, why didn't you go? Obviously, you're probably traveling around town, but why didn't you go to the reunion show, the Humble Laymeyer one? Were you far away?
Putting
you on the spot.
No. I mean, I think Sean definitely invited me.
Because that would have been that thing, like not for 4 days, but you would have been around people. We got to witness that again for a night.
You got to remember, Doyle. Like I was saying before. I mean, no offense to Price and Beichel and all those dudes. Like, they weren't really my friends. Like, they were your guys' friends. Yeah, so like
you were acquaintances.
I felt honestly, I even felt like a little bit of an outcast. And felt like, I mean, I definitely, you're having your own insecurities back when you're fucking 20 is totally different than 40, but they still kind of hold true. Like, I always second guessed like whether or not people liked me or not, just because that's just the way it works. Even if you have a scene and you have a family. I mean, our family was massive, dude. I mean, there was hundreds and hundreds of fucking kids going to these shows all the time. And, like, even if we shrunk the number down, we're still in the hundreds of ones that were going all the time. And then there was like an extra few hundred that would come once every month. But like I didn't really like, I mean, I maybe pretended to think that I was part of that crew, but My connection to the scene was a lot smaller than I think than the rest. Even if maybe from the outside looking in, maybe you guys have a different opinion, and you thought that I was Mr. Everybody's friend guy, but I wasn't. Like in the back of my head, I still was fucking, I still was keeping my wits about me and keeping my distance from people because I had that attitude about, high school and the school I went to and getting picked on. So I was on the defense, even if I was putting on a fucking happy face at shows.
I could see that. No, I could see that. I think even in that scene, there's that point where you're around friends and there's certain friends who like to be very, what's the word? Joking, like even now, Tom, my buddy Tom Simon, who was part of the scene back then, he's down here. Like I'll walk up, I'll see him. Like I hang out with him and his wife a lot down in Raleigh. Like we go to local spots, and I'll walk up and they'll be like, oh God, it's this fucking guy. And so there's always that joking sense, but sometimes even at that age, you're kind of like, okay, it was cool for the first minute. Then we're past that. Then it does get past that. But I could see like there were certain people that back then there was that we'd all be joking, but I think sometimes people were like, okay, like you could fucking stop now. This is like the point of all this.
Yeah, and sometimes, don't get me wrong, man. Like sometimes I felt like I was the butt of the joke too, and which I probably was because I was like super high strung and fucking wanted to be a part of everything and probably looked like I wanted to be everybody's friend. When in all reality, I just was like a fucking tight wound, bottle waiting to explode at every show because I had nothing else to fucking do.
No shit.
And it was my entire life. So like, it was like shaking up a bottle of fucking Coke, like when I'd get to the fucking show, I was like ready to explode every day because yeah, fuck it, man. I mean, I didn't go to public school. I wasn't friends with anybody, like I said, except for Josh. And, Gabe was kind of an asshole, but whatever, everything that's cliche to talk about. But, yeah. So like when I went there, I was just ready to fucking run around in circles, dude. I was just had like all this bottled up energy. And so that's why I was trying to like, it might have looked like I was trying to befriend everybody when in all reality, I was just trying to become a part of everything. Like I was just trying to get as much shit that I could get in before I had to go back to fucking shitty school and go back to my shitty house and be bored because I lived in Randolph and there was nothing going on there. And I wasn't friends with any of the Randolph public school kids and I didn't get along with any of them. So like, it was my entire life. So it looked like I was just trying to fucking friend everybody when I was just trying to talk to as many fucking people as I could outside of real life. I was trying to like erase life outside of the scene because I just didn't like it. I fucking hated it.
Who did who back then were like you tight with? It was like Jay Blanda, right? Like you hung out with the Jerk Off guys a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I played in a band with the dude. I love that fucking dude. I mean,
my God, that's right. Modesty Panel. I totally forgot. It was you and DiMaselli.
Yeah, he's one of my fucking friends. I love Jay. We talk not that often, but we definitely fucking talk enough. I talked to him a couple weeks ago, shit-faced at like, I don't even know what time of night, telling him I was going to be on the podcast. And we ended up talking for like an hour and a half also. And just,
that's awesome.
Like, I love Jay, Sean, Laura, again, another one I can pick up with and just shoot the shit with. She comes out to the bar when I'm home. And we, randomly have had a couple of drinks together and we can just have hour-long conversations when we catch up.
I love it.
So, yeah, Tom, I mean, even Tom Bigwig, like, he's not necessarily my friend at all, but, like, they played in Florida a month or two ago and we got to catch up. And, I really, I hung out with Tom here and there and, went up to Montreal. Del Vecchio, like, me and Del Vecchio, we were fucking two peas in a pod for a really long time. I was at his house in fucking Panther Valley like all the time.
Were you part of? Were you part of the Robo trip guys?
Yeah.
Yep. We talked about that.
I heard it. I heard somebody talking about that, and I was sloppy. I fucking glued to the floor, Robitussin style, a couple of times.
I always wanted to do that. And I pussed out every time. Well, I mean, I also never had a bottle in front of me, but I was like, this seems like it's really fucking cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Completely. Like I was definitely like, and if hopefully my mom and dad don't end up hearing this podcast anytime soon, but Yeah, I was definitely more into like getting wasted and having a really good time than I was in the business side of things. When I got to brass tacks, yeah, I took care of business and I still do. Like, I mean, I don't call out of work when I'm hungover, and I fucking, I'm a hard worker. But like, yeah, no, I partied. I partied really hard, and I always found the dudes that were into that. And what's up, guys? And yeah, I was always into hanging out with the people that wanted to have a good time and that were adventurous and like wanted to try new things. And so Del Vecchio and I hung out a lot, and I really miss him. I haven't talked to him in a while. And Josh, I would, see at school all the time. So me and Josh, we would hang. And I was at Sean's house in Fairlawn. Like, that's when it became like, okay, this is my real family, like Casey and Sean. And obviously Sean and I have now obviously, painted a full on relationship. But yeah, Hot Topic came into play.
Okay, that's really. I want to jump into that real quick. Who the fuck are you saying hello to? Are you in the mountain of the woods, like 6,000 feet up?
I'm at an RV park.
Okay. I was like, what the fuck?
yeah, the manager of the RV park. I've been here like almost 2 months now. With this whole virus thing, I'm kind of shut down and decided not to travel. So I've just been paying monthly here, and I'm stationary. Oh, you brought the gym. Mike, hold on 1 second. You might have to edit this.
That's fine. I can take this out.
Oh, sorry, Mike.
That's fine. No, that's totally fine. Actually, real quick, from this whole coronavirus things, I've been thinking about the worst case scenario besides getting this thing. I was like, well, worst case scenario is I'll go broke and I'll have to like be homeless or live in a van. And I'm like, well, that's the worst case scenario. That doesn't seem that bad because I lived out of, I traveled for 7 months around the country. Granted, I was staying in Airbnbs, but I was like, if that's the way life's going to go, then that's the way life's going to go.
Yeah, dude. I mean, what the hell else are we going to do? It doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And, yeah, I mean, I was an over-the-road truck driver for 2 years, too.
Yeah,
so, like,
I know. That's crazy.
Yeah, I lived in a shoebox. So, and obviously touring and stuff, too. I was in 5-driver.
I want to talk about that. Yep, I definitely want to talk about that.
Where were we?
Okay, so hot topic. I wanted to bring that up because the way that I met Sean is he was the manager of Hot Topic, but you worked there, Josh worked there, Dee, I think she was working there. I haven't talked to her since then, but I remember her. Aaron Kraft, whose name I couldn't remember for many episodes. He was in part of Jefferson. He worked there, and so we would our hanging out at that time period when we got our cars, where we go to someone's house and like hang out and smoke weed or smoke butts or drink. Or we go to the fucking Rockaway Mall and we'd always congregate at Hot Topic where you would be or Josh would be. So that was like our point. Like anytime, even if I was walking around the mall, I always knew I could duck in there and I'd be like, you were there, or Sean was there, or Josh was there. And I'd have someone to talk to and like catch up with while you guys were working there. So like, I just wanted to that was my relationship with Hot Topic. So like, how did it's so random, but like, how'd you start working there? And then like, tell me about like, just, I don't know, tell me what it was like working there.
All right. So it all started with one of my, I would say at the time, he was my brother and my best friend. He passed away, and you guys didn't know him. His name was Tom Barginn, and he was a Randolph dude. And big, gigantic skinhead, fucking 300-pound dude. And that was the first band I was ever in. And I started that band because of Schechter, because music and Josh and Gabe. And I was partying really hard before I even started in the scene. So that all started with Tom and this other dude, Brian. And then the dude who played drums for that hardcore band, Chris, somebody else
Heckle.
mentioned.
Heckle.
He was in like that really popular hardcore band. Shit, I was gonna write it down so I didn't forget, but
Heckle.
Some crazy name of the band. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, Heckle.
Heckle?
Wasn't it Heckle? Chris Heckle. If they were on Hopeless Records.
Heckle was from Chicago, weren't they?
No, they were Jersey. Chris Heckle. He did the Westwood Garage shows with Pete.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, no, not him. What's that? They were. There was like 4 or 5 words in the name, and somebody else mentioned them on a
Heft.
podcast.
Oh wait, Heft was
Was it?
ska. No, that was letters. Heft was ska.
Yeah, no, Scott. No, it's like it was like hardcore, but it wasn't hardcore, and they were crazy as shit, and they were like a brand new style. And I don't know, whatever. It'll come to us.
Wait, I
And
really want to know this. It started with an
uh,
H. I can edit this down.
oh no, it wasn't an H. It was
Dillinger Escape Plan?
Dillinger Escape Plan. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
he like down the road ended up filling in on drums in my first band. Had a few practices with him.
Oh,
But
Chris,
that's
the
like,
drummer of Dillinger Escape Plan, was your drummer.
yes. Well,
Holy
like
shit.
like after I'd already started a band, I didn't even know that they were a big deal. But that's not the point. Is I started this band called Plain and Simple. Then we changed the name to Dead Grass. We played Obsessions all the time. That was I was like 15 or 16, and that was my step in. That was like right before I actually met Laura and started doing shows, and then Tom got into heroin, unfortunately, my bass player and my best friend, and so he like went kind of off on a different route that I wanted to go to with drugs, but he was a mall rat in Rockaway Mall. And so we would hang out there all the time. My first job was McDonald's in the Rockaway Mall, actually.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was my first gig. I think I was 15. And so that's how I got involved with the Rockaway Mall in general, because I was like, oh, it's right around the corner from my house. My fucking mom can drop me off and whatever. and so that's how I became a mall rat, actually, from McDonald's, and started getting into the mall rat punk rockers even before the scene. And then Hot Topic was like the next logical solution, because it was the closest thing to being what I wanted to do, involved with music and all that, before it was shitty. And Sean actually didn't even hire me. There was a chick that worked there. She was the manager. No. The girlfriend of...
Oh, my God. Yes, Elizabeth.
Yes.
Yes.
So Elizabeth actually hired me.
She was so hot.
Yeah, she was a good looking chick. And maybe that's why I wanted the job. But yeah, she fucking hired me, and then she got transferred or was quitting, and Sean was replacing her. So it was like right in between her and Sean being manager. And then the first day of work, Sean was my manager. And that's how it all started. Like right then and there was Sean and I just fucking like bonded right away and became fucking tight right then and there. And so that.
Do you remember though? Like, it's so funny that you guys are still so close to this day. I mean, Sean, I love Sean. Like, me and Sean we've had moments in time where we stopped talking. I think it was more because we added more business than friendship to our relationship, and then the business that just never works out. So we always pull back, and then we're like, okay, let's be friends. Let's not do business. But like, it's a hard question to probably answer. But like, what do you remember of like why you guys hit it off so well?
Because we were the only two that were really into punk. like right at the very, very beginning. I mean, I was there before Josh, before Aaron. I mean, I was pretty much like the first one before, I would tell other people, or Sean would meet other people and trickle in. But yeah, like, I mean, Dee was cool. She was kind of goth though.
Yeah, totally goth.
And she was cool as shit. And I think I hooked up with her actually a couple of times. I don't remember. And there was another chick.
Well, I'll keep that out, but wasn't she married?
Yeah, I don't know. Leave it in. I don't give a shit if she doesn't care.
Oh, Jesus.
But yeah, there was this other, like, I just was like hooking up with chicks and kind of fucked up at Hot Topic. And I think Sean was kind of into that. And it was like a brand new thing. I don't know. It was maybe like he was an only child. And I felt like we just became like this kind of fucking dueling banjo style kind of let's have fun. And I don't know. I mean, I can't even. Yeah, it is a hard question, man. Like, it's just one of those things. When you just know.
Click. Yeah, it was like when I met Barker. It was like we just both click like really well, or like Sean. Yeah, I totally get it.
and also like he was kind of aggro, and I kind of like I looked up to him, and he was kind of like, and he was kind of like pissed off, and so was I, and he like wanted to fight all the time, and I didn't really want to fight all the time because I thought it was stupid, but I did. you know, I don't know. We just kind of, and then we just started listening to music and putting CDs on, and I had a bunch of tunes, and he had a bunch of tunes, and we would just listen to it while we were working. And maybe I just looked up to him at the time. I mean, I was just like, maybe, I get along really well with my older brother now, but at the time, like, had nothing in common with him whatsoever. So maybe the older brother syndrome. And
I had no idea you had an older brother.
Yeah, man, my brother Joel, he's awesome. I love him now. Fucking, religious Jew. But yeah, no. We talk all the time. I just videoed with him. He's upstate in Woodstock. He lives in Manhattan.
Okay.
And so he got out of there as fast as he could with all this craziness. But yeah, no. I have an older brother, and he was always like entrepreneurial, fucking like super slick with the chicks, and just like, kind of popular with everybody. And I never ever fucking related to that with him, and never, really had too many connections with him, like towards the, late teen years and shit. And Sean maybe was the one. Maybe he just filled the fucking void, and that was it. We rolled with it, dude.
Yeah, I could see it because Sean was about 5 years old. He is. He's still.
Yeah, he's not getting any.
Yeah,
younger.
I was like, time doesn't change over years. Like, oh, he's closer to my age now. I think Sean's 4. I think he's 4 or 5 years older than I always forget. Whatever. Yeah, but he was like, he was that. Sean was like. Back then, he was that guy who he was older. So I've had a bunch of interviews where I've talked about that person that kind of guided me through things. Like Josh Balhemus was kind of I brought him up a lot as giving me really good advice about the punk scene and all that shit. But now that I really think about it, Sean was someone that taught me a lot of stuff back then because he was older. So I remember like going to when I turned 21, I went out with him, Josh, Heiner, and I forget who else. But Sean, like, he taught me the ropes. He'd be like, okay, I'm going to buy this round, and then you go buy the next round. And I was like, well, I don't have that much money. He's like, no, idiot. Like, you'd be spending the same thing either way, but that's how you do that. To this day, I remember that.
He was such a fucking moron.
Yeah, I was like, what? I was like, I don't have that much money. He's like, Jesus fucking Christ. But, he was that person that would teach us about stuff, but also at the same time being in a band with him, going to the scene, and I think he was also learning from us. So there was this kind of like back and forth where it was like, both were learning. So
yeah, and then like after hanging out in Fairlawn all the time, I mean, I was going exit 60 off of fucking 80 nonstop. I mean, I was going out there all the time.
Yeah.
In my 86 beige Chevy Nova full of stickers.
Oh my God. Yeah. I remember that car.
Yeah. And then after, I don't even remember how we didn't fade away, but I went into Houseboy and started with Houseboy. And then Brett became that guy for me, my drummer, Brett.
Yeah.
From Houseboy. And so I lived with them for a long time and moved to Chicago, and like Brett kind of took up the slack. And it was right when I was turning 21, actually, when I was doing that. And he kind of became that guy who was like, yeah, you go buy the round, or I'm going to get you into this, Patrice was his wife at the time. And she like was a bartender and would get me in when I was 20 and I'd get wasted. And he taught me a lot about like just how to fucking manipulate the system. And he was kind of Sean number 2 for me, I guess, maybe.
Yeah. I could totally fucking see that.
Yeah.
But okay, so
ask away, Doyle. I need you.
I usually have a structure. It's the same thing every time. It's like, what got you into music? What got you into the scene? What got you in the band? What? Tell me stories. What broke it up? Which for me is just it's repetitive, and I try to be that structured. But I love this because it's just so. I have no notes in front of me. I have no Wikipedia page open in front of me. All I have is this IPA and this lager that I was just drinking. And
fuck yeah.
It's fantastic. So yeah, I remember that because the whole Hot Topic thing, because then we were going to shows, and actually, no, real quick. What was the first show that you went to?
All right. So this is funny that you asked that, because my best friend Pat, like my closest friend now, who I don't know if you guys know him. He played in a couple of bands, but he wasn't really involved in the punk rock scene. You know how the scene was kind of, let's just say, for the most part, it was all of the same bands. We could probably, if we took the next 20, like 30 to seconds to a minute, we could probably sit here and we could start listing.
We could be like, we could play the fucking ABC game probably.
Yeah, and we could probably get to an end point. And then there's a fuck ton of bands that weren't really involved in the scene, but because the scene was the only thing really going on at the time, they would fucking play some shows, but nobody really paid any attention to him, which was unfortunate.
Oh, wow.
Because he was in a band called Knuns With Guns, which nobody would fucking mention, like this awesome hardcore band with my buddy Aaron Talawar, and like all of these awesome hardcore bands that were underground. Like the major hardcore bands we can mention, but the underground hardcore bands got pushed aside because that really wasn't the taste of the scene. Like, let's be honest, the taste, maybe.
That reminds me real quick. I'm just going to cut you off for a second. What was that band that we were talking about Elizabeth from Hot Topic, her boyfriend, her husband at the time? No,
now husband.
Okay, but like back then, Chad, that he was the drummer for that one band.
Wasn't it Froggy?
No, it's over with an F. God damn it, Barker's probably yelling at his stereo system right now, or his iPod, Christ, iPhone. I mentioned them a few times.
Froggy's the dude. Froggy, not Chad. It's Froggy. Oh no, Elizabeth's boyfriend was Chad, but isn't she married to Froggy now?
Well, no, they had a kid together.
Okay, all right.
I forget that, but they were a band that was playing in the scene, but they didn't really have that sound to be doing that. So that's what I was trying to relate to. Yes, okay.
They're from Randolph, aren't they? Or Bud Lake?
God damn it. This is going to drive me fucking insane. I think it started with an F.
Your notes, Doyle. Where are your notes, dude?
I don't have notes, Brian Granik.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. And yeah, they were like, even though we're forgetting the name of the band, they like, if somebody brought it up, a lot of people would be like, oh fuck yeah, I definitely remember that.
Yes.
But I'm talking about like bands that got pushed to the wayside a lot faster because there were a lot of shitty pop punk bands, but they didn't get pushed to the wayside because they had the sound, at least, even if they sucked. And the hardcore bands got pushed to the wayside because I don't think they were up to the level of the fucking tastes of most of the scene. Am I talking out of fucking line? Or,
no, I think it almost like reminds me of, God damn it, who's the band who did the cover of Tainted Love? I just talked about them. Three Piece. The lead singer always wore an astronaut outfit. They were on Revelation Records.
Oh, Census Field or Census?
No, not Census Field. No, in a Census Field. No, they were from Jersey. They were that band they were like a punk band, but they kind of balanced on the border where they would play shows, but they also like it would fit, but then they kind of wouldn't fit.
Didn't Boxcar cover Tainted Love?
I don't think they did.
But I love those guys. Oh my God, Derek.
Okay, that was because the maroon shirt you were wearing, it was that maroon V-neck with the stripes on the. This is me just being detailed. Also, I have a photo of this, just because you're grabbing your leg, even though I think you did break it or you sprained your ankle or something. Because I remember you being on crutches, I think. I'll
definitely say that's probably.
But you were in a boxcar. That was the Boxcar shirt that you were wearing. Like
I love that.
Yeah, you were a huge fan of them. I actually just reached out to them because did you hear about the 3-hour concert thing that we did in the North Jersey pop punk group last week?
Sean brought it up. I my friend Mary Beth also. Oh, that's a whole nother fucking side of the scene. Somebody brought it up and I didn't. Yeah, I was doing something. I think Sean got pissed off because I didn't pay attention to it.
It was so awesome, dude. It was like it was amazingly awesome. But I just reached out to Boxcar guys because I was trying to see if Derek would want to do it, but they're like, yeah, he just completely just doesn't want to do that shit anymore.
Yeah.
But Okay, so the first show though, but we were going off on a tangent there, but that was with Guns with Guns.
Knuns With Guns.
Oh,
Yeah,
Nuns with Guns. I thought it was Guns with
Knuns With
Guns.
Guns. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even remember why did we start that comp because my buddy Pat
Well, no,
and
I said like, well, now that conversation, it was either, God, this is definitely the beer kicking in. There was like what got you in a hot topic was with your buddy, and then that's what you guys were hanging at the mall. But then it was what was the first show you went to? So you said it was a funny story.
right. So Pat, my buddy in that band, he brought up when the first time I saw Bigwig was, and I couldn't fucking remember for the life of me. And honestly, dude, I don't fucking know the answer, man. I cannot. I just, like I said, I have not, I don't think I have a bad memory. I think it was just all a big fucking party and a good time for me. So I don't have one of those nostalgia. I don't have a lot of nostalgic moments. I mean, I know that sounds super fucking negative, but like, I'm not a, oh yeah, remember when kind of guy. I'm more of a, let's keep the party going kind of guy and might as well continue that shit.
No, I
As opposed
appreciate that.
Yeah, so it's not like I'm talking down on it. I don't fucking remember, Doyle. Dude, I don't remember the first actual show. I mean, I was playing Obsessions before I was doing shows. So I all right, I can tell you this. I can add to this. I was playing Obsessions a bunch of times with my first band, Plain and Simple, then Dead Grass. We changed the name. And that was my in to music and a sort of scene. And Cement Shoes used to play there, and that's how I got into kind of hardcore. Was those dudes? Folly, by the way.
Yeah.
There we go. We got it. So Folly and all those dudes, and I met Laura through, I think, Laddie, through Kevin.
Yeah, yeah, Laddie.
I was who I hung out with a couple of months ago because I'm outside of Phoenix right now.
Oh
so
shit!
I saw him.
Wow.
Yeah, he lives here, and I love that fucking dude. He's such a cool motherfucker. I love Kevin. And the skate scene, I got really involved with the skate punks and really involved in that whole thing and going to actual shows like in the city and going to CB's. And like, I got really involved with going into Manhattan. Like that was like a big thing for me. So the shows like Legion Hall shows and stuff was Laura got in touch with me through Kevin maybe and came over to my house. And I met her at the end of my driveway in Shongham Lake, and she gave me a bunch of flyers, and we started doing shows from that moment on. So the shows was like the next step after me already getting involved with like punk rock in the city and getting super involved with like English punk rock and like reggae and two-tone and ska. And like I was already kind of like really interested in that, and then mixing with Josh at school and then Hot Topic. So the scene was kind of that melting pot. Once I started doing the shows, that came because all that stuff was already getting fucking stirred up.
Well,
in the pot.
what was like the style that you love? I remember NoFX being like your band, but that's my memory.
Yeah, I fucking love NoFX, and I still do. And yeah, I mean, Fat Wreck is fucking huge in my life, changed my world. Epitaph, then like old school thrash metal, Misfits, old punk, Ramones, like all the old school punk rock. Like and then I started getting into like, all right, so my brother, the first tape he ever gave me or he listened to was Whitesnake.
Yep. Yeah.
and then the first tape I ever got, my mom thought she was cool and bought me Slippery When Wet by Bon Jovi. So like both of those were like my first actual musical music shit. And I right away fucking hated it. It took me like a year, but that was all I knew. But I wanted to find out what was actually going on. So I was on a Jewish youth group tour called Something Across America or something. And the Jewish youth group was, I don't remember. But I went across the country in a bus for like 3 months one summer, probably when I was like 15, that summer when I was 15. And I met a dude who I can't remember his name, and he we went to a record shop or a CD shop in California, and I bought Sam I Am.
Nice.
I bought No Effects, Punk and Drublic, and I bought Bad Religion, Stranger Than Fiction. So those were so Stranger Than Fiction came out in 97. So
yeah, that was like their major label debut. I remember that.
Yeah. So that was 95, 96, or 90.
That was, let's see. That was my that came out, and that fuck, that was my freshman year, which was 92?
No.
Yeah.
No fucking way, dude.
Let me
94. Look it up. Stranger Than Fiction was 94. And Punk and Drublic, I think, was 94 also. Check those out.
I don't know. Let me see. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, 94. Okay, I was off.
All right. Booyah.
Oh, no, wait, it was not 92 was when I was 13.
That was
grade.
Against the Grain was. Oh, no, that was way
No, freshman year is when Green Day came out, because I was in art class, and Steve Regula came in, who was a part of the singer Six Felter Place. And this is before all the scene that I knew. And he was like, yeah, this Green Day album came out. That's me in the back there. That's my head, and that's my friend's head. And then I did an interview with Brian Malloy from his zine. I'm going to edit this.
No, you're not.
I'm going to edit this. Yeah, Just in Time for Nothing. So Brian Malloy from Just in Time for Nothing, I interviewed him, and he's the middle guy holding the Ernie doll on the back of that fucking...
On Dookie?
Yeah.
Oh, no shit. Yeah. That's crazy.
Which was crazy to find out in his interview. So, but that was 92. So anyway, yeah, that's why I kept thinking. I thought that I learned about Bad Religion at that time, but I learned about it because Barker got Stranger Than Fiction as he was getting into punk rock, and that's led us down this whole fucking path. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the time, like, I think I went on that trip either before or after Oren had that No Effects sticker. He might have had that No Effects sticker. Actually, he had that No Effects sticker when I was like a freshman maybe or sophomore, and I went on that trip maybe the summer of sophomore year, because I graduated in 97. So maybe the summer of sophomore year into junior year, and then that's when I was like, oh, No Effects, I got to buy that fucking CD because of that sticker and go back to school and fucking know what I'm talking about. And so somewhere around there, but that was the transition. Like that was the moment in time when I was like, all right, now I got to find out everything about everything. Like, I didn't have an older brother that was into it. I didn't have anybody teaching me about it. I just had to figure it out all on my own. And I think that summer when I got all that shit was the floodgates had just opened, and then I just went fucking shopping. Every fucking penny I had was just buying and the Fat Records, and there was that BMG or whatever. You could like order the.
Oh my god! Yeah.
Yeah.
The 10 fucking CDs you could buy for like $1.
Oh yeah, and I wailed on that. I mean, I would spend hundreds of dollars on just getting shit shipped to the house and mail orders, and so then literally I went from 0 to like 100 fucking million in the span of like 6 months. I was just in. And that's where it all really started for me, was like the very beginning of high school is where like Misfits. And then then Tom, my buddy who passed away, he was super into like two-tone and reggae and like English music. And that's where the Sex Pistols came in for me, and the Ramones, and like old school punk rock. It all just opened up, and it's all a blur, but that's where it all started for me. And that's where like, obviously the scene was like super easy for me at that point, because I was already like, okay, now I need a family to share this with. And that's where
interesting. You know, actually, what I thought about as you're saying that, I remember being that young, because I think by the time we get our licenses, we're so eager to just go and fucking explore, because we've been cooped up in our houses with no way of doing anything for 17 years, right? It's almost like how you said you'd walk into a show and you would just explode because you had all that pent up, like, I need to fucking release because everything sucks. And you get there, you're like, here, I have so much energy and I have to express all this. But at that time, it was perfect timing, because we wanted to get out of our fucking houses. We got our licenses, and then it was like, okay, well, where do we go? And I think that matched with finding a passion, which, like you said, getting Punk and Drunk in Public, or Punk and Drublic,
Got it right the first time.
Punk and Drublic. Getting Punk and Drublic, and then going, oh, I can go where I want to get more of these. This gives me a reason to get the fuck out of the house, but I have a purpose and I'm building something and I can find these places to go to. And it's like I had a place to get to with my car. And then as I'm driving, it would make that experience of driving more enjoyable because I was listening to this music and it was like catching me the entire time. I was like, what's that fucking song? I got to play that over again. It was just, I try to, I obviously haven't studied psychology at all, but I think it's just become I break all these things down to feel like, why did all this stuff mean something? But just those little minute, like small things like that just make so much sense because that's where we lived. We wanted to get the fuck out of our house. We wanted to get the fuck away from our high school. And the time after that was, what do we do with that? But then that connection, that glue was all this punk rock shit.
And Jersey was easy for that. That's what I tell everybody when
yes,
I travel.
And that's why it was so great because it was an hour to go coast to coast or 3 to go top to bottom, which we all kind of stayed within about a 30, 60-mile radius of our hometown, which you could see so much, though.
Dude, I mean, in an hour, like Jersey changes like so rapidly in a fucking hour drive. And
that's so true.
Yeah, I was obsessed with driving. Like, and that was the thing. Like, once I got that Chevy Nova, I drove down to flew down to Florida with my mom, and it was my grandfather's car. And he sold it. He wrote $1 on the title and gave it to me as my first car. And it was a stick shift. And me and my mom drove it back up from Tampa, Florida, back up to Jersey. And it was the first time I smoked a cigarette in front of her. We were in a hotel room. We had to stop over and I smoked a cigarette and she was actually kind of all right with it. And I was like, okay. And I learned how to drive that stick shift and in a parking lot in Tampa, Florida. And as soon as I got back home, my whole world fucking changed once I got a license in Jersey. And you could bring the CDs and the tapes in friends' houses and you could grab all this shit, or you could bring them into your car and have your friends go into your car and smoke a fucking bowl or do whatever you wanted. And like you had your own apartment on wheels. And maybe that's why I live in a van now. Fucking
you're just reliving it day to day.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just super easy for me. And maybe that's why I became a truck driver. I just loved driving. I had no problems jumping in the car and driving to Sean's house in Fairlawn. Like it was no problem. Like he never came to my house in Shangam Lake.
Oh yeah, we went to your house once. There was a party you had in like 2001, 2000. I think that was the first time I'd ever been to your house. Because Sean's house was like fucking, not the UN, like the embassy or some shit.
Yeah. And that upstairs where 14 people lived at one time. And
oh my God. Yeah.
I got laid in his living room so many times, and the basement shows there. I mean, that's where I fell in love with basement shows. And then I started going to New Brunswick and hanging out with Trucker and Stein and did Umbilical Records with Stein, and Mohawk Barbie came into play. Like I loved basement shows, and Rutgers and New Brunswick had basement shows. And I fell in love with that. Like there's something about being downstairs in a dark room where nobody can fuck with you. Like it just all of those things were so awesome, and they were all not necessarily new, but like easy. They were super easy. There was no fucking stress to go into a basement show. The Legion Hall shows were awesome, but like I was doing shows, like I was putting on the show. So I had to have some form of like responsibility, and I was a fuck up. So I had to make sure that I wasn't too much of an asshole because I hated those people. But I also was putting deposits down and spending a lot of money. And my mom was doing all the flyers at her school, AHAMC on Dover Chester. And like I'd go in there and have her make me 500,000 flyers. And like Delvecchio and I would design them and we'd print them out at his house and play fucking PlayStation or whatever it was at the time and just smoke a ton of weed and do Robitussin. And like, it was just like, it was that mix between responsibility and having a blast that I was like constantly up and down battling throughout the whole entire time I was doing it. And I think I did a good job. I don't know if I did, but, and then being able, also the power to be able to have like my friends all come to one place was what appealed to me the most. Like I could be like, Well, dude, if I'm sort of popular in the scene and have this kind of power to be able to open up, like drop a couple $100 on a Legion Hall, like I could have all of my friends in one place for a couple $100 and deal with a little bit of responsibility. And that's what really appealed to me with doing the shows.
That's really smart for that time to see that. Some people would be like, oh, fuck, they'd be, I want to put on a show, but then it'd be, oh, I got to give you $500 for this. But you're thinking more of, not like a business standpoint, but it was, how can this, you had a different perspective on it. Like, this is, I can get all those people there. Yeah.
I wanted to sustain it because it was the only thing in my life at the time. I'd lost Tom, which fucking really fucked me up. And I don't really talk about it that much, but he was my best friend. He was my brother. And it fucked me up like really hard when he died. And I had like, nobody knew him. Nobody knows who he is, but he was my entire world. He was on the other side of Randolph, and I could like ride my bike to his house, and he was the punk rock connection. He was my first, when I was playing in a band with him at Obsessions, that was numero uno for me. That was like ground zero. So, when he passed, like, I was kind of like in this super crazy limbo of just trying to grasp for straws to figure out on how to do that again and continue to have that. And the scene was my sustainability in that. Like, it was memory of him. I think about him all the time. And he was definitely a huge catalyst in my passion for like continuing to want to make friends that were legitimate, and to have something that was ours and mine, that was nobody else's, that we didn't have to share with anybody if we didn't want to, because we had enough people around to make it okay. And high school fucking sucked. And, it's just all that kind of mixed into one has kind of turned us into who we are now, but definitely was like the main reason why I wanted to like continue to do shows and mingle, dude, like straight up mingle with people. Cause I just wanted to learn about other people's lives and what they fucking were up to and trying to, whatever.
So a couple questions there. There's three things I want to talk about. Like one, the shows you put on. Two, I definitely want to talk about Umbilical. The other one, I also want to talk about Five Driver. But prior to that, I remember in this past year, I've been talking to Sean. So everyone listening, Sean, if you're an hour into this Sean Lanemar, if you haven't caught that, and this is people who don't know the scene, that's what I'm talking about. So Sean, excuse me, I just like burped.
How many IPAs are you in?
Oh, I'm on like 2. No, I'm on 1. I had a lager and an IPA. I'm gonna have my other one next.
Moving on. Sorry,
but
Sean.
like, I've reached out to Sean a couple times and I said I really want to get Brian on, and he was like, "Nah, he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to do it." And I don't want to stay on this. I just want to jump in for a second. Do you think the reason that you didn't want to do this was because of your buddy, or like what was your pushback?
Yeah, I don't fucking know why I didn't want to do it. I think I like, I'm a move forward kind of guy, Doyle.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I think I like nostalgia at a bar.
Do you think nostalgia holds you back from moving forward?
No, because not really. I don't know. Honestly, Doyle, like I don't have a real answer for it. I think it was just more, because I don't like you. I've kind of read through the bands that you've had on your podcast, and it might seem like I like a lot of those bands, but I really not that I don't like them as people, but I don't listen to them.
Yeah.
And a lot of the bands in the scene now, I don't really listen to. So maybe I was battling that whole, like, they're not really what I relate to in my life and who I am. And then I realized at one point I was just kind of drinking. I'm like, it's not about the fucking music per se. It's about the people.
Right.
And I think that's kind of why I was just like, fuck it, dude. Like me and Sean, we were at the bar in Phoenix or at some bar like a month or two ago and just kind of hanging out. And, he's like, you got to do it. And I was just like, fuck it. Because I don't take a lot of things seriously, Doyle. That's the thing. Like, it might be the difference between maybe you and me and a lot of people. Like, I take a lot of shit with a grain of salt. And so I think doing like an interview kind of seems like it's the opposite of like everything that I am.
Well, my interviews are not. My interviews are, the whole point isn't like to be, there's no real, the only gain from this is just remembering, right? And sure, like there's some episodes where I was like, hey, do you want to, if you want to sponsor it, you want to chip in or something, that's really basically just to keep this thing going. But like, I didn't start this with this like endeavor of going, oh, I can make this into like a thing. I always want to keep it as organic and authentic and casual, and that's why I just start recording, because I think I don't want anyone that I'm talking to think that I'm trying to get something out of it that's not what it is, and just conversation.
Yeah, and I can totally feel that. Like, me and Sean have talked about it. I don't even think that at all. Like, I wouldn't have done this if I thought you were trying to fucking make money off of this shit, because it would have been long gone. I wouldn't have even thought twice about it, like, because that's not who I am. And dude, you've always been organic. Like, even like the whole, like a lot of the people that like Humble, you guys, Lanemeyer, like all the dudes, like Bigwig. There's a lot of reasons why I have no problems talking to people like on Facebook, or if we go out to a bar, or if I'm coming through Charlotte or wherever you are now, like I would love to have a couple of beers with you and just shoot the shit, because like I know fucking bullshit from not bullshit. And if I thought for a second this was a moneymaker, I would be like, fuck off.
On that note, I like to pause for a second to talk about our sponsor. Speaking of the IPAs I've been drinking.
Yeah, dude, I'm drinking $14 Canadian Club from the local supermarket. Handle bang for your buck is the kind of guy I am.
I should get that. I think I bought, what the fuck did I buy? It was like $9 for this bourbon. I haven't bought bourbon for my apartment for the 4 years I've lived here, because I live within a block of 12 fucking bars in Raleigh, and so I just go out all the fucking time and just burn my money. But I've been stocking up because of this shit. I've been just like, what's the deal I can get right now? But if that Canadian Club, oh fuck, a handle, $14, shit, I'm gonna do that next.
Like, you could probably find an even cheaper deal for a handle, dude. 1.75, man, and it. Depending on how many interviews you do with another Brian Granik, you can make that long.
This is the most I've drank in any interview, except for Chris. I think Chris was drinking like wine the whole time.
Of course he was. I love wine, but mine's boxed wine, Franzia. That's
the picture you sent me yesterday. Like, this is the life I'm living. Or what did you said something like that? You're like, this is who I am. I'm like, I appreciate that.
But I've always been that dude, man. Like, I love craft beer though. I love it, man. I mean, my tastes have changed. My bank account necessarily hasn't changed. But when I work really hard, oh man, there's a brewery here in Bisbee that makes killer fucking beer. It's called, actually my buddy Lance just sat down at the table. What's the name of the brewery? Bisbee Brewing Company, right? Yeah. Old Bisbee Brewing Company, and they make fucking killer stouts. I'm a stout guy.
Yeah, I wish I wasn't drinking so much, because it just like, my body's like, let's turn that into 10 pounds. I'm like, God damn it. Stop doing that. Yeah. All right, so jumping back into this, because I could talk about beer with you, and everyone's like, what are you talking about? All right, let's talk about, do you remember a couple shows that you put on? Because I'm on the NJPP archives, and he's got flyers up from that era, and I want to see if I can find any.
So like,
and the year, and try to remember the year, because that's where he's
okay.
Got
well, the year is going to you're going to need to go on the fucking internet for the years.
That's where I am.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, dude, there was a point where I was doing 4 shows a week. Like, literally, I was doing.
You putting on that many fucking shows?
Dude, I'm not even fucking patting myself on the back. I mean, between me and Laura, and then of course Ricky coming in.
Yeah.
Like, I hundreds of shows. I mean, like, I remember there was a time, like maybe a summer of, let's call it 97, I graduated. So let's call it 97, 98, when maybe the summer after I graduated, when I went to CCM in 98. And for the listeners, Cannon College and Morris. I think you've mentioned it before.
Good old CCM.
Randolph Diner style, where we could smoke still.
Yes.
Yeah, where I remember there would be like a Wednesday through a Sunday where I would literally drive. Mount Arlington was my biggest spot. I loved that spot. And then West Orange Legion became pretty much mine for the most part because that was on Mount Pleasant or Pleasant Valley Way, which was a couple miles down from Schechter, from Solomon Schechter, where me, Josh, and Gabe went.
Okay.
So West Orange became big, and that's when I was doing 5-driver and started and actually joined the band. Was from the West Orange Legion because I let those dudes in for free in the overdrives and the PA bands and the upstate New York bands like Lounge and Beefcake and all those dudes.
Yeah.
So there was a time I remember where for a couple of months straight, I would literally flyer my own shows for the next night from Thursday through Sunday. I was doing like 3 or 4 shows a week, and I'm saying 97, 98 was probably the heart of that. Maybe, 97, 98.
Okay.
Right?
Because that's when I got involved in the scene. That's when we started as Congress of Cow, and then 98 as we became Landmeyer. So I'm in the 97 section right now, and I'm seeing, it's basically like Chris did a joke the other day because he took the lineup from last Friday, and he's like, here's the next lineup for the next 5 shows. He put 7 in a row, and it was the same lineup because it just was reminiscent of that time.
Congress. It was at the beginning. It was Congress of Cow, Humble Beginnings, and then I would always bring in. My thing was always to try and bring in bands from outer state, and then always one headliner. So I got really in with the booking agents, like the bigger booking agents. But I would always Congress, Humble, obviously Humble because Josh and Gabe were in my school. And then High Strung was in there a bunch. Yep. Jeremy's band.
Is that when Jeremy? Well, Jeremy was always in High Strung after Sticker, right? Yes.
Yeah. So Sticker was like I don't know if I actually. Laura probably did some Sticker shows. I don't think I really did too many Sticker shows. I was more in the High Strung era when Jeremy was in the band, and that's how I got to be friends with him. And then 5-driver, Overdrives, Beefcake, Lounge, all the upstate and PA bands. I loved bringing those dudes in to kind of fucking open that shit up. I did a fucking few shows at Obsessions actually before I really got into it because my band was playing there. So I would do a few at Obsessions, and then Mount Arlington was my big one.
Did you do the Mount Arlington show where we played? There's a show. So when I first saw Bigwig, it was in Hightstown. We played. It was us, Shower with Goats, Speed Bump, Boxcar. Wait. Yeah. Bigwig, Boxcar, Speed Bump, Shower. Us, someone else. But we saw them for the first time. I bought a Bigwig shirt. I bought their CD. I basically wanted to become John, their bass player. Yeah. And then we played a Mount Arlington show. And it was Congress of Cow, but I dyed my hair pink, and I bought all the stuff from. So Martha Schofield, she was one of our Martha. So Marmar's.
I was into her, by the way. You can keep that in.
You what?
I was into Martha big time.
Oh, Martha was great. She was dating Luch at the time, but Martha was fucking awesome. And so besides you wanting her, so she helped me dye my hair like fuchsia. It was like fucking pink. I bought all the shit from Hot Topic, and we did that, and my mom wouldn't talk to me for a week, and then we played in that time period. It was still in my hair. We played a show at Mount Arlington, is what I'm getting to, and I was hanging out. There was this girl in Stockholm named Bree.
Yep, I remember.
Yep, blonde, and we were all hanging out there, and I think she had like put my hair up in like rubber bands or some shit. So there's pictures of me playing, and I'm completely ripping John off from Bigwig, and I'm jumping around, and it's at Mount Arlington show. And, did you? This is your long. Yeah, that was your show.
Yeah, that was my show. Yeah, definitely. I remember you had pink pigtails.
Yes.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, man. And Bigwig was on it. Shower was on it.
No, Bigwig didn't play that show.
Maybe Royalties on that? Because I used to do the Royalties were like the one kick-ass ska band that I loved fucking doing shows for. Rob Hitt was in the Royalties. He was the drummer.
Yes.
For
yeah, because I made a mistake with him, and in his interview, and I said he was in Professor Plum, and he was like, "No, it wasn't in that fucking." No, he didn't say it was fucking man. He was like, "No, it was in the Royalties." I was like, Oh, that's right. He was in it for like a hot second before he got into Bigwig. Christ, before he got into
Right.
Midtown.
Professor Plum, fucking loved those dudes. What was the other ska band I fucking loved? Catch 22, fucking loved those dudes. That
I never listened to those guys back then. I've heard them a few times now since I've really wanted to interview Thomas about that time period, but I never. Those are like bands that like some of the bands. Well, actually, no, pretty much everyone I've interviewed I've like listened to, but I never got into them, and everyone was into them because I think it was so out of ska. I was just not into it back then. But they were
and I
like
was super
huge.
into that. I was a big ska fan and loved all that shit. I mean, because I was into like two tone, because Tom, my buddy Tom turned me on to like two tone from England, so I was just like all in with the ska, man. I just fucking loved it, and I still do. I mean, Boss Stones are one of my favorite bands still. I fucking love those dudes, and I still love fucking ska and punk. And Suicide Machines just put out a new record, which is awesome.
I heard about that.
Yeah, and I fucking love all that shit still, man. I can listen to it all day.
Yeah, it sucks because I would love to try to reach out to those guys, but I've said so many times about that one album they put out where the guy wrote like a song about his dog or something. And
Suicide Machine?
Yeah, it wasn't Battle Hymns. I think it was the self-titled.
Okay.
He wrote some song about his dog or something, and I was like, that album was awful. So in saying that, I would love to interview those guys. It's like bands I can't interview would be like them, the Descendants, because I was like I don't not like the Descendants. I just never got into them. Who else? Yeah, like Promise Ring. I never got into, like, I was always like that album with Delaware. I was always like that song annoyed the fuck out of me, even though now I might take it. So like I always feel bad. I'm like, people are like, you should interview them. I'm like, I was like, no way. I've talked so much shit about those albums. It's like
the Jade Tree scene, kind of like that whole Jade Tree scene.
No, I like the Jade Tree. I liked a lot of the Jade Tree bands, but just like the popular bands, I was like, I don't really get it. But
yeah, and I got like. And I went through a serious phase with all that stuff because, again, like we were talking at the beginning, like I was a sponge at that time. So I wanted to fucking see it all. And Brett from Houseboy was really into that stuff.
Oh, Houseboy, I talked about that too.
Yeah. And Ace was super into that shit. And so like I got really hardcore into a lot of that stuff, but it faded away because after they left, it wasn't my bag, but I listened to a lot of that stuff, like Promise Ring, like Aaron Kraft, like was really into that in Hot Topic. He was really into like a lot of that stuff, and like Smoking Popes. He used to wear the Smoking Pope shirt all the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like I got fucking super into it pretty hard, and Sean and I listened to a lot of it together too. But it faded fast because it just was a phase for me. Like it was a couple-year phase because I wanted to know everything about every scene. But yeah, punk rock and thrash and ska and two-tone and reggae and then bluegrass and all that stuff came into play like really hard because it wasn't as serious. I mean, it had a message that was serious, but it was a lot more grain of salt, and it was kind of like a brush off kind of music that you could just leave at the doorstep. Whereas the serious emo stuff and the serious emo hardcore stuff was just too serious for me.
You had to give your time to it. You had to give it like you had to put thought into it and like give it some time.
Yeah. And you guys were good at that. Like you guys were really good at writing those kind of tunes, and my bands, had such ADD and short attention spans that we wanted to write fast, fucking quick songs. And Houseboy was Houseboy and Modesty Panel were the two most intricate bands I was ever in. Houseboy was actually really fun because I really loved writing songs with Brett, and Ace was a killer singer, and it was just so much fun. Like we toured all over the country, and I moved to Chicago with those dudes and like lived out there for a while, and it was great. And then Modesty Panel was the same thing. Like, but Jeff was super serious, and I love him and I miss him, but he was like really professional, really business all the time. And me and Jay were kind of fuck ups. And Jay wrote really emo, emotional songs, but I was a Jerk Offs fan till the day I die, and that's my bag. I can fucking pop a Jerk Offs tape in tomorrow and love it. And I just love that. And so Modesty Panel kind of went to the wayside because of that too.
Okay, real
'Cause
quick
Jeff,
about Modesty Panel, because I heard a rumor that when you guys put out your first record, I don't know if I asked Jay about this. Didn't Jeff like take his savings and pay for that album?
yes, the answer is
And it
yes.
wasn't like 10 grand or something like that?
I think it was more than that, dude. I think it was like
Wow.
30.
Get the fuck out of
I
here.
think it was, and I want Jeff to get on the phone one day. Yeah, he started. Well, we started a label, and Jeff decided to call it. I don't even remember the label it was. It was something funny, and it was cool.
I can remember Jeff being like, it's just, fucking records.
Yeah, it's
know.
something fucking funny. And, oh yeah, I mean, me and Jay got a kick out of him, and I love
Oh,
him
God, I
so
love
much. But
Jeff.
Jesus
Yes.
Christ, and yeah, he did. He basically pressed and released the fucking record.
Wow.
And yeah, we went on tour. We drove all the way to Texas. We toured that record, and poor bastard probably did not get anywhere near, or if any, of that money back.
Oh my God, I do. I remember hearing about that, and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like, God,
Yeah.
it was funny too because Jeff was our drummer in Congress of Cow, for people listening, and
Yep.
he quit the band because he was dating Lois Manzella, and he wanted to go to college. He wanted to, I think at the time, marry her.
Yep.
And we had a conversation with him in Del Vecchio's house after a party upstairs in his guest room. It was like me, Chris, him, and a couple of our friends were there. And he basically just said he didn't want to be in the band anymore. And then we played one last show with him in Hackettstown. And I think Brian Fallon put the show on, and it was the first time we saw One Cool Guy play. And because he didn't want to tour, and we wanted to tour. So, and then when I remember when he went on tour with you guys, it's not that I was bummed, I was mad or anything. I was like, that son of a bitch. He didn't want to fucking tour. But then I think he had broken up with Lois at that time, and I think he was just kind of like, you know what? I think I chose the wrong. I think I wasn't right about what I wanted to do. And when he got with you guys, he clearly knew that he wanted to just play in a band.
Yeah, yeah, and like we practiced at his house, at his new house with his new wife now. And so it was easy for him, and we recorded at Showplace Studios, which I was working at, and I was delivering pizza across the street, and I was bringing bands in. I started producing and engineering shit because that's what I was going to school for in college.
Oh, shit. I didn't know
And,
that.
yeah, that's what I was doing at CCM. I was going for music technology and business and shit because what the fuck else was I going to do in college?
Oh,
And yeah,
CCM.
so I think it was really easy for him because we would go practice. We had a little shed out in the back at his new house that he had bought. And I think he loved the convenience of it. And when we went on tour, I bought the van, and it was parked in my driveway. And we bought it from Red Light, Green Light, the dudes in Red Light, Green Light. I
Yeah,
don't know if you remember those.
I do remember that name.
Yeah, and so everything was just kind of like easy for him, which is fine because I fucking didn't care about driving, and where else are we going to practice? And it was fun. We could just drink beer in the back, and they'd go up to Maine and bring lobster down, and we'd just, me and Jay would drink, and we'd have a good time. I brought friends over there at some point and just jammed and smoked a bunch of weed. So for Jeff, I think it was more like, I think Jeff loves security. I think he liked security. If he wanted to, he's definitely not like a lot of us where we kind of are just, I wouldn't say living up by the seat of our pants, because you're definitely not. And a lot of people are doing a lot of really awesome shit, which I respect and fucking admire. But I think there's a lot more of us that are more free spirited than Jeff. I think he's not.
I'm a risk taker in the fact that I don't work for anybody and I do being freelance. It's a balance of structure and of being free willed, because I walk into every week and I have no idea where I'm getting my money from. And I just happen to just do what I do, and then it just kind of slightly works out, not to a point where I'm ever able to just leave that week and go, okay, cool, I'm good for 6 months. I leave that week and go, I think I'm good till Wednesday. But
Okay.
but sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm cool for this month. But like Jeff was I want to be 60 and retire. And this is what I remember from him 20 fucking years ago. But he was that guy, like, I want to have that 401k and retire and a wife and kids and be structured. And that's why I was, like I said, I was so confused when I heard he had put the money up for that. But when you guys, in real quick, when he offered that, what was that conversation like?
There was no conversation. I mean, it was, this is what I'm going to do, and we're just doing it. And there was no business plan. You know what I mean? There was no contracts, and I think I didn't even know about it until a couple of weeks later. Like, there was literally no sit down. It was more like, hey, dude, let's just put out a record, and I'm just going to fund it. And we were like, okay, cool. And you know me and Jay.
Yeah, you're like, okay. Yeah. And then you're like, yeah, I guess I'll spend 3 days playing bass on the recording. And
yeah. And so I had Showplace Studios lined up. I'd already, had a name there. And Mike D was the engineer there. And
Mike D. Yeah.
That fucking kid.
That fucker.
Jesus Christ. That fucking pain in my fucking ass. But yeah, like we were like, all right, let's go to Showplace. Well, it's expensive. That's all right. Fuck it. Here's $30,000. And we're like, okay, dude, it's like fucking $800 a day, and whatever. And it took us 30 days to record that record. We recorded that Modesty Panel record, and it took us a month to get that done. But then it sounded great, and I was helping engineer it. And I mean, it was cool. It wasn't my bag musically, and I've told Jay that a million times. Like, I was just having fun with Jay, writing tunes. It wasn't necessarily my style. Jay pretty much he wrote all the lyrics. But musically, we were jamming. We were writing a lot of stuff musically. And yeah, there was no conversation, to answer your question.
It just kind of happened. You guys were just like, okay, cool. You'll pick up the bill. When did you find out that he spent that much money?
Shit, Doyle, you're asking me the hard questions now.
I know. I'm like, I don't know. I don't really know who asked the hard questions.
One of them.
I'm like, was that Hard Copy? That douchebag who went on to do his own show and fucked himself.
I don't know. I feel like Beavis and Butthead should be fucking chiming in. Yeah, no. I mean, I think I didn't really care enough to know the answer to that question.
Okay.
So I don't have an answer to that question because I think we were just having fun. We were having a lot of fun. Like, don't get me wrong, Modesty Panel was a great time. It was a fucking blast. Is it windy, by the way, or
a little bit? I'm hearing a little bit of wind.
All right. Yeah, but no, I think it was just like, it's one of those things when you're involved at the moment and it's not too much business. I mean, Jeff was definitely the business side of it, and when there's not a lot of that and you just want to play music, I think you forget that there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes because you're just so involved with having fun with your friends and you're getting so deep into every band practice and you're just like 3 hours go by and you forget to have that conversation. So I don't think it ever actually happened. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think it ever actually happened where there was like that clear moment of, holy shit, Jeff just invested his life savings into this shit. I think it was more like, hey man, if you want to fucking do it, that's your choice. Like, thanks.
I actually, now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I have no idea how I found that out, but a lot of these interviews have been me asking people like, I heard this back then. Is that true? They're like, wow. Yeah, like this is the true story. These are all these little things that I've always wanted to know, but I forget, it was like Barker told me that or something like that. And all I want to do is just do an impersonation of Jeff, just like saying things like, "Hey, let's get in the van and let's drive around the country." Oh yeah, a super fucking Stallone fucking Jeff. Oh man, I love him so much. The guy is like the most salt of the earth motherfucker, but that's how he would talk. Like, I quit the band because Lois wants me to fucking quit. Lois wants me to. Yeah, you're way better at it than I am. That's for damn sure. Oh my god! All right, want to dip into a few things here because we're about an hour and 40 minutes, and then I don't want to. I mean, Chris, we can talk for a while, so you just let me know. But I'm not even giving you like an out to be like, oh, yeah, I got something to do. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna hold you hostage.
Doyle, I just want to let you know I'm fucking loving this. So as long as you want to go, I have happy hour at the RV park with Lance, who just sat down before. He's the dude that I said hi to and told me about the company. Old man Lance is he's the star of Bisbee, and I've befriended him. He's a 72-year-old artist who does comic books, and we just like have beers every day and just hang out. So that's literally all I have going on. I mean, fucking coronavirus is taking over, so I can go as long as you want to go, dude. No problem.
This might be the second longest interview that I do. Which sucks. Well, no, it doesn't suck. What sucks is that everything's shut down because of this shit, and I haven't. The only thing I've eaten today was a muffin, and I had a cold brew coffee. But I'm a fucking champion, so.
Goddamn right.
I can keep going.
Don't fucking quit on me now.
Oh, I ain't quitting shit. So Umbilical. I remember you getting involved with Umbilical. So everyone listening. So I talked to Trucker, and Trucker was in. God, you have to edit this one because my fucking brain.
Mohawk Barbie.
Mohawk Barbie, thank you. Okay. This is where I edit it. So Trucker was in Mohawk Barbie, and I interviewed him, and because I also reached out to Stein. Stein didn't want to do it, but because Stein had Mohawk Barbie and he did Umbilical Records. And Umbilical did White Powder Donuts was the comp, was I think the first comp, and a couple I think Stick Figure Suicide was one of the bands, and Mohawk Barbie was on it. And then you got involved with the label for a second. How did that happen?
So, I was hoping you didn't ask this question because I not because I don't want to answer, but because it's so hazy. It's such a hazy time for me there. But I mean, I
asked the hard hitting questions, Brian.
That was one of those hard hitters. That was a hardball one. Yeah. No, I mean, I befriended Stein and Trucker. By the way, I listened to a little bit of Trucker's episode, and I love that dude. And I've hung out with him in New Brunswick over the last 10 years a couple of times while he was
and he's still going strong with this shit. It's crazy.
Smart as fuck, knows so much about music, and just like a really fucking crazy mind that I could fucking sit on a front porch and listen to him talk for hours. That dude knows a lot about a lot of things, man. So
actually, really quick, my favorite part of that interview is when I talked about Stein with the no wipe part, and then Trucker laughs, but then he it lands with him, and then he really starts laughing. It's my favorite part of the whole. He laughs, and he starts really laughing. It's so fucking amazing.
Yeah, Stein. Oh man, I mean,
no
Stein
wiper.
Yeah, he's such a character, and Stein will do that to you, man. Stein is such an original motherfucker, and there's no fucking way to explain Stein to anybody. You just have to meet that dude. And the fact that Trucker was laughing that hard just proves the kind of dude that Stein is. He's such a fucking mess, and I love him for it. And so going to Umbilical, man, I mean, it was through Mohawk Barbie, most likely. The beginning is very hazy. Is through obviously me doing shows was a gigantic answer to most of your questions. Meeting all these people through all the shows I did, and it was Mohawk Barbie, or it was going down to New Brunswick because I had a friend's band playing down there, or basement shows down there. So the beginning of it was a mix of something like that, somewhere in that realm. Now I'm assuming it's from shows. And it was one of those one thing leads to another kind of stories, man. Stein loved to drink. I loved to drink cheap beer. He loved to drink cheap beer. We would drink out in the parking lot, and we would just, fucking talk punk rock, man. Just like a lot of my friendships, and a lot of my friendships now. I mean, that I still make now. We'll be going to a fucking bar and just drinking PBR. And I met my band in Florida that way when I first moved there. It's just somebody would play something on the jukebox, and I'd be like, that fucking song rules. And then next thing you know, we're having beer.
Yeah, and there's that instant connection of wait a minute, what's that? And then you're like, oh, we're gonna be friends.
Yeah. I mean, and that I'm sure that's where it came from. And I'm sure it's one of those, hey man, you want to fucking blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure it was a lot of mumbling and bumbling through like the beginning of the friendship. And then, yeah, I mean, he lived down in Heightstown, or like down 287 and like Central Jersey.
That was on 287. That was not the Parkway, wasn't it?
No, it's 287 to exit 17 or 13 when they first started changing it.
Okay.
But the split is at 22. You know that circle in like Somerville.
Yeah.
So like that's where they lived, and Stein lived, and yeah, one thing led to another. It was probably because, you know, I was doing so many shows and I was already involved in the quote unquote business of the whole thing, however you want to label it. And he had already had Umbilical. So Umbilical was all Stein's baby.
It was already established. Like he had
100%. I will take zero credit for starting fucking Umbilical. People have said that to me a couple of times through the years. And I'm like, no, I had no part. Umbilical had already had a comp out. And I think it came down to money. And I had some money saved up from shows, because I always made a few $100 off the show, a couple $100. And I would always pay the bands awesome, but I would always make sure that I at least had a couple $100 that I could either put back into it and lose, or, you know, make enough money to be able to drive around the state and pay for gas or whatever the fuck, or flyers.
Or and just I ended the fact that you had to pay yourself for putting in your fucking time of doing a show.
Yeah, and I did, and I said it to myself a few times. I had to check myself and be like, listen, dude, like, I'm working my ass off. It's okay that I'm banking a couple of bucks. And you know, and I did. I probably ended up making a few grand throughout the whole thing, but at that time was millions. And awesome. And yeah, and I think me and Stein probably, I was just like, dude, I got some money. I fucking love your label. I love the bands on your label. I love fucking you. You're fucking hilarious. And I think it just came down to that. And I started driving down there once or twice a week. And I just joined on to Umbilical. That's really all it was, man. I just I helped him promote and I helped him put together comps. And it lasted however long it was. Somebody probably knows better than I do.
Tell me the process of putting it, like, the comps together, because I only thought there was the one Umbilical comp, which was the White Powder Donuts, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Like, do you remember if that was it? And also, what was it like trying to wrangle all of these local bands and getting, like, nowadays? It's so easy to me. I think the reason I chose the career I did because I was so confused back then of how you would design a CD, how you would record shit. But now I can do all this stuff on my own, and it's very easy to me. So now it seems easy to get MP3s from people and shit like that. But back then it was so like you're like speaking like a foreign language to try to. You're like, hey, bands, send us an audio track, and they're like, how the fuck do we do that? So how the fuck was that process for you?
I think that's what appealed to me. I think that was because, you know, as we were saying at the very beginning, like I wanted to kill time, you know, during that time. Like I wanted to learn new shit, and I just wanted my brain to constantly be active with something that like kept me fucking going. So I think the challenge of trying to get these bands together and calling all these booking agents for shows, getting these bands together to send stuff, to get it to a studio, to get it to mastering, to get it up to, you know, Nada or whoever did mastering at the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, all of those things were, you know, and then eventually, like, obviously going to take those classes in county was like the next step. But I think all that stuff was the only thing I fucking knew. Like, I had nothing else. I mean, I draw here and there or whatever, and I skated here and there. But fucking music and everything that came along with it, no matter what it was and what style of music it was just so fucking appealing to me. That challenge was, like, fucking so much fun. And also, I'm involved with people that I give a shit about, and in a style of life, which was whatever you want to call it, NJPP or metal or ska or whatever, like the scene itself, which is what this whole podcast is about, is is what was the most appealing for me, man. Like, and so what? It wasn't work. There was no. You know, it's cliche, but it wasn't fucking hard work. It was just obviously this is what I have to do with my entire day because this is all I have going in my life. And yeah, I mean, if you want to know the specifics of how it was done,
Yeah, like little small intricacies of we would
of how,
like be like, oh, here's
yeah,
an example. Like these guys, we'd call them up and they'd send us this. I mean, to some people this might sound boring, but to me, when I learn, it's almost when you watch those how-to TV shows on like how it's made.
right.
There's a fascination to it, and it's to some people who did it, it seems boring, but for me, I'm like, oh, that's crazy how that fucking came together.
All right, so phone, you know, was first. You know, back then there was no fucking emailing,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
we, you know, I know we're gonna go into again a repetitive fucking conversation about I remember back in the day shit, but
Which was
back in the
20 years ago. Which is, I remember back in 1998.
yeah. So like it was literally like I mean I had a black book. I literally had a fucking black book. Like I had a book, a ring binder full of fucking numbers and notes, and I still do that to this day. Like even when I save people's fucking names in my phone, I save specifically where I met them. And you know, I had a black book of where I met them. I maybe have a little bit of autism or whatever you want to call it, but like I'm very detailed in the moment at the time because I know I'm going to forget it down the road. So I would save, you know, a band name with a dude, with a state, with a, you know, address. And I had a whole black book and I would book tours through that. I would call booking agents through that. I had all of that stuff all in a black book, which I know is somewhere, which I'm so pissed off I can't find right now, but I looked for it like a couple of months ago. And yeah, I mean, I literally, that's how it happened. It was phone calls and then conversations and then mail, physical mail, bubble mail. Like people would put CDs in manila envelopes or tapes in manila envelopes. And it's everything you've been able to see on YouTube about the 90s. That's the truth. I mean, and punk rock throughout the US and England is all the same. All the DIY stuff that you hear is the truth. And that's literally what we did. I mean, Joanna from she had an interview on here from Serial Killer, her sweatshirts, like,
Yeah.
you know, people on the West Coast and fucking, it was a network through the phone. It was a network through a book. It was networked through, this is your book, your fucking life. We'd get all the numbers off of that. And then as far as like getting bands to get their stuff to us to record it was the exact same way, except in a smaller version of it or a more local version of it. But for the most part, it was hands-on. That's what I loved about it. I mean, I was literally talking to people all the time and I fucking loved it. I mean,
Was there like a
I don't,
criteria though? Like what was the idea you had in your head when you guys were like, let's do this comp? Like what was the vision of it?
so yeah, I mean, Stein and I were pretty punk rock. And we liked the raw shit. Stein maybe even a little more than us. Me, I learned a lot from that dude about hardcore punk rock, like DIY hardcore, like underground stuff. I learned a shitload from him and a lot of bands from him. But yeah, I don't know if there's necessarily a criteria, more of an ethic and an ethos that we lived by that we wanted to portray by Umbilical. You know, I mean, it's kind of like Epitaph or Fat on a grander scale, except, yeah, you have a little bit of pride in the type of music that you want to portray. And it's not to say that the other music's shitty or, you know, we didn't want to do that, but yeah, we did. We had a kind of a little bit more of a old school kind of punk rocky sort of kind of party vibe. Less serious, less emo.
I think I was kind of surprised because I think we're on the White Powder Donuts comp, and I remember like we would play a lot of shows with Mohawk Barbie, and we were friends with those guys. Kind of going back to the beginning of the conversation we had, where you'd play with bands, but like sometimes you weren't there for their music. You were there for, oh, we get to hang out, you know? And there were some bands like
Yeah.
us and Humble, like we were thick as thieves, where we loved hanging with each other, but we also loved each other's music. So there was this automatic bond between us. And there was other bands that we loved to see, but there were some bands where we were like, I'm happy to see this, but I'm more happy to see you as a person. And I remember thinking, I think when we got on that comp, if I do remember that we were on it, and I was like, wow, I don't think we're the style that Stein really likes, because Mohawk Barbie had a hard time really, like, they played shows, but I think they had more of a struggle getting the people that they were on the bill with to stay and watch them, or like,
Yeah, because they were old school party fucking hardcore.
exactly.
And most of you guys, dude, again, I fucking loved listening and fucking going to the shows, and fucking, you know me, dude. I was in the front. I was behind the drums. I was fucking arm in arm with you guys.
You're all with
all the time.
The Granik finger pointed up in the air.
Fuck yeah, and I'm proud of that, and I'm not taking anything away from that, because it was you guys. That's what I loved about it, you know? And I think that's ultimately what it came down to, is that was the whole point, is that the music might not necessarily overtake the fucking people that are involved in it. And I think that's what I definitely take from the scene is, you know, is you don't have to fucking love the tunes, and they don't, you know, they can mean something one night and other shit can mean something 6 nights. But the people mean something every night. You know, the people that were involved mean something fucking every single night. It doesn't matter what you're playing.
Well, that was like the balance, but that was the balance though. Like, cause we would go local, we would do the local shows, and we loved either, there was completely loving the band, the music, and the people, or the music and the people in the band, or there was just like, we love the people and like, we're stoked you to the band, but like sometimes it's not our thing. So that was like the whole local part. But then when you go to the city, everyone was there for the band, and then you'd bump into that person who you saw locally. You're like, what the fuck you're doing? Like, and then you'd recreate in a smaller sense that local scene in Roseland or Irving Plaza in that tiny little radius that you had. Yeah. Like, actually, I never went to I never really went to Maxwell's a lot. Like, we saw. Well, I went to Maxwell's after the fact when I lived in Hoboken later on in life. I would go there all the time, and I fucking loved it. But that was when I was just sitting there drinking a beer and like getting hammered and seeing a different perspective of it. Where I was like,
so,
I'm fucking, yeah, I was like, I'm fucking destroyed right now. This is amazing. But yeah, that was like different, not stages, but like. Phases of it, but the same time period, but it was local, it was bigger and more family. And then when you went to the city, it was to see the music, but then you'd bump into people and you create that element again there in a smaller sense. But it was like, this is great. I'm seeing face-to-face play right now, and hey, it's a couple people from the scene, and we're all locking arms, and we're bringing the scene here, but not the whole room. The entire room isn't here for the same thing that we are.
Yeah. Which was refreshing for me, because, you know, I mean, that was great to know that like the whole key of this podcast and talking about it is the fact that there is no such thing as a New Jersey punk rock scene in the 90s or 2000s. I mean, dude, you can go to LA and Southern California when Joanna was talking about, you know, Black Flag, which is like, you know, that scene is my scene. I love that fucking shit. Like old, you know, hardcore punk rock is me. Like, that's what I am. Like, Dead Kennedys. I mean, that is my entire life. But that's what I loved about the scene, is that you could have the fucking little bit of steak, but you're still at the barbecue. And the barbecue is what it's fucking about in the North Jersey scene. It was about the barbecue. It was about us all getting together and barbecuing. Whether you ate a fucking veggie burger or you ate a fucking steak or you ate whatever, you drank PBR or you whatever, we were all at the barbecue, the one barbecue together, and it was its own fucking barbecue that like we created, we continued, and then eventually fucking destroyed. But like,
that is a goddamn amazing metaphor. that I love that. The steak would be like the band in the city that you go to consume and you'd leave and be like, that was a good steak. But when you're there for the barbecue, for the party, that's
Yeah.
the memory that you leave with. That's the
Yeah.
bigger
And,
thing that you
dude,
go back to.
and I'll go into a fucking the city to get a fucking killer steak any time of the day, dude. I love going in and getting a crazy awesome meal, and it's unforgettable. Those meals are unfucking forgettable. Like, and I've had them all over the country and all over the world.
Yeah, but the human
I've gone to
connection, though, the human connection is the thing
the
that
barbecue.
made more sense. Yes, that was the conversation you had. It was the conversation you had. It was really, hey, what's
Yeah.
up? And then you talked about stuff, and then this, like that. I think that's why I love doing these. And I think as you're talking right now, it made it very clear of why this interview was so important to me is because when this is the barbecue, right? There's the bands that I talk to now, which I love those interviews, and it's me more dissecting about their the thing I looked up to or was marveling over, which was the music part. But the thing that I've kept with me has been the connection to people, which is what we
Agreed.
established back then. It's like
Yeah.
the two interviews before this, it's like I talked to Ben from Dillinger Escape Plan. He's going to be
Right.
two before you. And then I talked to Jake from Strung Out. And those are talking about their experience. And I love that. So I get this balance. But this experience and this conversation is us remembering that thing that we shared,
Fuck yeah.
that which I love.
Fuck yeah. And you're never going to understand Jake's situation and like his barbecue that he had going through Fat Records. And I've had those conversations with those bands. I mean, I owned a stage on Warped Tour, and I got a chance to talk to a fuck ton of awesome bands that I looked up to at the after parties for years.
What?
And oh yeah, you didn't know? I co-owned a stage with Zach from Five Driver, at the East Coast Indie stage.
Okay. Wow, there's okay. All right. God damn it.
Shit.
You
How
just
much
keep
editing are you gonna
unlocking
have to do?
you just keep unlocking like different doors. Like, what? I haven't even gotten to Five Driver. We got a Houseboy, we did Modesty Panel, sure, like Five Driver a little bit. But damn, dude. I mean, I just remember you as just Brian. Like, we'd be like, oh, fucking Granik. Like, we'd party together and bullshit and see each other's shows. I honestly don't remember how much behind the scenes involvement you had. That's crazy.
Yeah, I did 3, 4, and 5 on Warped Tour. We did 30 days at the East Coast Indie stage, and yeah. Oh shit. I mean, yeah. I don't even know where to begin with that stuff. I don't know how. I don't know how much editing you want to do.
We'll do the cliff notes.
Yeah. I mean, that's not what this podcast is about. But yeah.
It's still
I mean,
fascinating to me because but there is that element of this where I'm like, what, that band? Like, you're like, yeah, I talked to I don't know, whoever you talk to. I was like, what? That's fucking crazy. Because there is that, oh my God, there was that music and that song connect with me on that song level. But again, this level is more of, this is us going to this shit together.
Yeah, and Doyle, like, I know I didn't get a chance to talk to you much about this while we've been shooting the shit, but like, you guys, all of you fuckers molded me to be the person that I am now. Like, I mean, I'm not. It might be the whiskey talking, but like, I honestly, like, I know it's that fucking stupid cliche line, like, music saved my life shit, but like, in all reality, like, if I didn't have the scene in the late 90s and early 2000s, I probably would be dead. I mean, I know it's kind of a weird fucking thing to say, but I probably would have just like been a statistic, and
Well, why do you say that?
Honestly,
why?
Well, because of what I was saying kind of towards the beginning, like
Not feeling like you had anything to connect to.
Yeah. I mean, like, in all reality, like it gave me, like, God, I hate using cliches, but it gave me purpose, man. I mean, like, it kind of gave me, I'm going to say it gave me a reason to live. And
it gave me a reason to wake up and look at the sun and really appreciate all its glory. No, but it's true, man. But that's the thing. Like, that's the shit that I've been holding on to for the last 20 years. Like, you went in your path. and you've done all this crazy shit, not crazy shit, but like you've just lived this you live this different lifestyle than I'd say 90 something percent of the people listening to this. And for me, I'm also a balance of like, yeah, I like structure, but also I like the freelance lifestyle where it keeps me doing my own thing. And then a couple years ago, I traveled around the country, like sold everything and traveled around the country for like 7 months. So there's that disconnection that I have, but
you wouldn't have been able to do that without the shit that the scene gave you, that power.
100%. Yeah, like in my high school yearbook, which I've said a couple times, like it was, your class will, and I put in mine, I was like, never sell out. And I remember at the time I showed that to my friends and they laughed. I think they made fun of me. But to this day, I still tap into that. I'm like, man, at 40 years old, it might have meant something different to me back then, but I think about that now, and there's this like, yeah, like I just chose to just do my own thing. But my point is that when you're talking about the scene giving you purpose or whatever, some people just realize at an early stage, like they're like, I need something more out of what's been handed to me right now and from everyone else. And when I think a lot of people found that time period, it just gave them creative outlet. And I think that's what they needed. It was, I have ideas and I'm being suppressed by the people around me and their ideals, and I don't agree with that. But this thing was this open canvas of I can express myself in any way, and now I feel free.
Yeah. I mean, in pretty much in like the words that you just said are the reason that we can do what we do. I mean, it gave us. I don't want to. I hate using the word business savvy because it's a different kind of business savvy. Our business savvy is different. And it gave us, man, I mean, we're being redundant, but it gave us an outlet to harness the way that we feel about fucking our lives. It gave us I don't know, like a fucking, with Tesla or whoever harnessed,
No, but it's like, but I think, but the problem is that I believe that everybody has it. And my thing now is when typically what annoys me is when I tell people what I want to do and I get initial backlash of what's up?
Like who? Like who do you tell that to?
Just people in general, people in daily conversation. I'm very expressive. I can't hold anything in. I constantly have to tell people just what's on my mind. Always. I'm like, I want to share this with you. And I've learned to understand people when they give you that look, like yourself. You probably had a conversation with a person, multiple people. I want to buy a van. Wait, is it a van or do you have an RV? Like, what do you travel in?
It's a Class B. It's it's fully enclosed. I got, it's a Dodge Ram 2001.
So you're like, I want to be mobile and I want to travel and just live out of here. I'm sure there was a very small percentage of people who were like, that's fucking amazing. Like, if you told me that, I would have been like, that's fucking awesome. How are you going to do it? Where are you going to go? What are you going to experience? But I do that with everybody. But I'm sure you also got, that seems scary and stupid, but it's not you that they're having that issue with, it's themselves because they feel fear that they couldn't do it. They're not telling you that you can't do it. They're like, oh, I couldn't do that. And you're like, well, that's not what I told you. I said, I'm going to do that. And I think that everyone has that initial want to do a thing and they get backlash from people because everyone has that fear because they just project their own bullshit. And a large percentage of people go, oh, I guess I'm not going to do that then. But I was the person who saw through that. You're the person who saw through that. There's people who see through that and they go, yeah, I just don't want to listen to your advice and I'm still going to do it. And they just fucking go for it.
I think you think about it way more than I do.
I think about, I dissect this.
I'm not talking shit. I'm not
talking shit at all. No, I think this stuff all of the time. I'm constantly, it's like when I wrote songs back in the day, it was me just projecting my thoughts. I had to get them out there because I was like, I need this to be a thing and I need to almost give myself permission to do these things. I think with you, you're like, I just feel it, I just go with it, and that's fucking it.
Yeah, but did you play like in Lane? Let's go with Lanemeyer. Like, did you play in that band because you were playing with a bunch of friends, or did you play in that band because it was like your only option?
I did it because it rewarded me. It gave
Yeah,
me. I've always been a person who needed an outlet of what was in my head. Even like now, I can clearly see it, like 100%. Like I think I know way more about myself, or I definitely know way more about myself than I did when I was like 16. But at 16, I didn't have a lot of friends.
yeah,
And that's when I found like the guys I'm still friends with now, because it was a small group of us and we all just accepted each other for who we were. And I was like, that's what I want. But at the same time, I was doing plays in high school. I was doing choir. Like there was this, I was drawing. I was just like, I need to just fucking put shit out there. So the whole Lanemeyer thing, and I also love just performing. I absolutely, it's easy for me. And so I got all that with Lanemeyer was I can perform. I can get up in front of a room of people. It's comfortable for me for some fucking reason. I can be a clown, and
yep.
I can also
Which you
write.
were,
Yeah, which I totally was. I was like, I'm gonna hand this shit up. But my point not my point, my purpose back then, which I see now, is that it's like when you go to a party, you ever just like walk into a party your friend invites you to, and there's like 30 people there you don't know, and you're like, you're talking yourself up as you're going there. You're like, this is gonna be so uncomfortable. I'm so nervous. And you walk in, and no one's talking to you, and it's so uncomfortable, and you want to get the fuck out of there. Like,
Yeah,
I was the person who was. I recognize that. So when someone comes to the party that I'm throwing, I want everyone to feel comfortable. So when I got on stage, the fact that I could command comfort, I wanted everyone to feel that way because I knew what it was like to feel uncomfortable. So I loved that element, and I also loved the fact that I got to be in a relationship, which I was passionate about back then, and then express the heartache that I had and put that out to people and be like,
yeah.
this is just some shit I put together. So I got all of that out of it, and then it became too much business, and I think that's why we broke up, because then I turned it into, oh, I can make a living off of this and make money. And that's when it was like, pew, just fucking
Yeah.
exploded.
So Doyle, what you're saying is you want to get married to me.
Brian, will you be my Granik?
Let's get real. Is that what this whole fucking podcast is about?
2 hours later for me to pop the question.
You were hoping that I would be episode 100 to fucking blow my mind with some fucking crazy proposal of, oh, Granik, I'm so glad you did it, and this is why.
It's been 20 years since I've seen you, but I've always wanted to marry you. Let's make this happen.
Doyle, ask me more questions that you can edit into the podcast so they make sense for the people that are listening, because I could shoot the shit with you all night.
I don't give a fuck if 2 people listen to this episode. I'm gonna enjoy the fuck out of editing this, which is basically me gonna be like, okay, I'm not gonna cut anything out, and that's it.
I hope that's the case. I hope you can leave it going, man. I hope you can let the ball roll. But
yeah, I'm definitely gonna. I'm leaving everything in except where I fucked everyone's name up that I kept talking up because I've been drinking. All right, 5-driver. So let's touch on a couple things, and then we'll wrap this up. But 5-driver, like, tell me about that whole thing, because I'm like, you mapped this whole thing out. It was going to shows, putting on shows, doing Umbilical, and you did 5-driver before you did Houseboy. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So 5-driver was pretty easy. I mean, 5-driver, I befriended 5-driver pretty quickly because I was just getting PA and upstate bands on at least as many bills as I could, because I just wanted to bring people in, like I was saying before. And they just came to a show in West Orange, and they weren't playing, or they couldn't play or something, and I just got them in for free, and they thought that was so cool. I don't know if cool is the word, but like they were like super fucking happy, and I was just like, yeah, whatever. And then I think Zach had already lined me up to play guitar in the band. He had already had me in mind, and because he knew I played for some reason. I don't even know what bands I was in before that he knew that, or maybe we had just talked about it. And he's like, dude, do you want to just, like, we need a guitar player, man, like, in the band. And, just come on tour with us. And that was the moment when I started touring. Five Driver was
that your first tour, like first touring experience?
That was my first tour, like for sure, like touring experience. And they had a fucking bus, and they were like, well, come to PA next week. And I was like, all right, fuck it. And I'd already loved driving around. So I went out, and I was in the band a week later, and we did a couple East Coast tours. And throughout that, I was still kind of doing shows, but I was mixing shows in with actually wanting to play music. And Five Driver was a super easy transition. And then me and Keith like bonded over weed, and we got super high together all the time. And I just kept going out to PA. They were living in Tannersville at the time, in the Poconos. So I would drive out there, and and we went on tour and kept touring. And I mean, it's super uninteresting story, but the tours were fun as fuck. The bus broke down in Orlando, and we left it in the parking lot, and the fucking DMV called us like a week later, and like we had like a summons for some court date because it was registered to us, and we broke down a million times, and Zach was missing home, and me and Keith were just partying the whole time. I ended up, me and Zach ended up staying in real close contact, and I moved out to the Poconos for a while and lived with Zach for like a year. And that's how we started our recording studio together. That's pretty much the story. It was just tour, have fun. And that was my first kind of taste of the actual road. And I fucking loved it. I duct taped the entire bus together as it was falling apart. And that's when I realized I was actually good at construction. Because I had like rolls of duct tape, and I used to duct tape everything together and make it work so we can get to the next spot. And we had a fucking hell of a time and played with like Yellow Card and Muscle Plug, and we played with like a couple of bigger bands. And
what year was this? Because Yellow Card was around that long.
Yeah, so this is this is right at the beginning of Yellow Card, before Yellow Card like blew up. And 01, I want to say 2000 maybe? No, maybe 2000. 99, 2000 or 2001, somewhere in that vicinity.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range. Maybe you can look that up. Maybe. Yeah.
I remember seeing you guys play in Pennsylvania. There was once you got into Pennsylvania off at 80, I think it was, there was always this truck stop that people stopped at. Or
the Gap.
Yes, that was it.
Yeah.
And
hell yeah.
There was like the Pizza Hut or the fuck those things were. But I remember I think we stopped there. We went there after your show, but it was a bigwig show you guys played out there.
Yep.
Yeah. And that was the first time, because I remember being watching you play, and you were so happy. And I remember you like looked at me and like smiled. I think you mouthed, you were like, because it was like the thing we'd always look at each other and be like, "Oh, I fucking love you, man," and like mouth that to everyone. Do you remember this at all? We'd be like, we were so excited, be like, "Oh, I fucking love you guys. Thanks for coming." Like, we'd like mouth that. I remember you like looking at me, and you were like just really into it, and I was like, dude, I'm like fucking stoked that Granik is, I don't know, just like super just in his fucking moment right now. Like, watching that show.
Yeah, that's when like the two worlds collided for sure. Was I got a chance to actually like play and be putting on shows. So like Five Driver was definitely that moment. And I do now remember that. I'm glad you brought that up, because I do remember being super nervous. I was playing a Les Paul. I was playing Zach's guitar, I think. And Dana was in the band. She was playing bass on Zach's ex-fiance. And it was me, Dana, Zach, and Keith was drumming before, Keith he played for Bigwig on Reclamation.
I didn't know that.
Oh, my favorite fucking Bigwig record. I tell Tom that all the time.
I had no idea he played in Bigwig. Okay.
Oh, he Reclamation. That record?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's Keith drumming.
Oh,
so,
okay.
And dude, I got a Keith story.
Tell
Such a stoner that there was like one day that we were practicing at this recording studio, and we would usually go out for like a fucking smoke. And every time we'd go out for a smoke, he would go out for a pinner. He would roll like pinners for joints, and he would smoke a whole pinner while we were smoking a cigarette every time. That's how much of a pothead he was. So we'd go out for a smoke, he'd go out for a joint and smoke the whole thing. And then there was this one time that we were having band practice. It might have been when Five Driver turned into Split 50. It might have been that transition into after Five Driver, but Keith was still playing drums, and he was terrible. He couldn't fucking play the drums because his fucking drug dealer didn't have weed, and he was sober, and he fucking wasn't high, and he couldn't fucking play the drums, man. And it was hilarious. It was such a fucking pothead that he couldn't play without weed, dude, and he was terrible. And I'm sure he doesn't remember it, but I talk about it all the time. I tell that fucking story all the time. It fucking cracked me up. And he's the best drummer, dude. He's such a fucking killer drummer. And
is he still playing drums?
As far as I've last heard, yeah. I mean, he was in a band in PA that was kind of big. I don't remember the name of the band. Zach's brought him up a couple of times when I talked to him. As far as I know, he's still doing it. I mean, obviously, like Tom from Bigwig is a tough nut to crack if you're in a band with him. I mean, I love Tom, and he's such a straight shooter. And again, another dude that's taught me a lot about music, and I looked up to him a lot, and I've loved hanging out. I went up to Montreal with him and Bigwig and Monkey and Del Vecchio, and we got fucking tripped out on shrooms and like fucking like their booking agent. I met Scott Radinsky from Pulley in the elevator because they had a booking agent, and like fed a dog that we were staying at their apartment some shrooms, and like the dog was fucked up for like 4 days and was by accident. And I had so much fun with Tom, and he's just such a good dude, and he's just such a fucking badass motherfucker, and he loves animals. He is really, really like, he's a black and white dude. Take him or leave him. But
he got his. Someone said there was the tornadoes out in Nashville. Where the fuck does he live now? He's in Nashville. Yeah, and his house got I think a lot of his shit got flooded.
Yeah, the last
tornado
storm
or something.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't talked to him, but I know that he was either posting or somebody had mentioned that he was posting about how fucked up Nashville got, and he was pretty tore up about it, but I don't know much more about it than that.
Yeah, it's gotta be like pretty fucking intense shit where crap's like natural disasters are happening right now where like, this is the bad time because we can't go outside. So
yeah, it's pretty fucking serious when it comes to Jersey and New York. I mean, I'm in a bubble down here in Bisbee, but yeah, it's a pretty fucking serious thing that's happening, and hopefully everybody is paying attention to the people that are fucking fighting the fight. Literally, I know it's a cliche again, but the front lines, man. I mean, the nurses and the doctors and the people that have to deal with other diseases and other things that are happening, like you just said, tornadoes and car crashes and things that are actually fucking happening on the other side of this. You know, the easier we can make it on everybody that are dealing with the hardcore shit in Jersey and New York, I fucking strongly believe in. And I full on think that people got to stop fucking being idiots and selfish, and we'll get through it. And boredom is temporary, man. Fuck, man. I mean, it's 16. As of today, I looked up this morning, it's 16,000 plus now deaths.
Well, 16,000 reported. You can't,
No. Yeah, 16,000 reported deaths. Obviously, 6,000 or 7,000 of them are in New York. Manhattan specifically. I mean, almost half are fucking up there. So, I mean, obviously, with all this podcasting and shit we're talking about, it hits close to home, man. I mean, it's tough, man. I try not to bring it up too much when I'm hanging out with people around here, but yeah, it's tough. It's tough to talk to my parents. They're in Jersey and Shongam Lake, and they're just, they're buckling down. My brother's upstate and he's buckling down, and it's just, it's fucked up.
Yeah, it's wild, dude. It really is. I mean, gonna wrap this up soon, but even Michael, like he got out of the city because him and his wife and their two boys, they live in New York, and right before this thing really hit, they're like, "Hey, let's." They had just got a summer home in upstate New York, which was they were still putting together, and they're like, "Let's just go for a weekend." And now I think it's been a month. They went up there with 3 days worth of clothes, and they have like no furniture in their place. It's like it's in the, I mean, it's in the middle of the woods, and the kids have something to do ish if their just imagination runs wild. But
Yeah.
they left with just an idea of a weekend, and 4 weeks later they're going, we're still fucking here. And I mean, I can't even imagine the millions of stories of people that are something crazy like that, or just they're there and they're like surrounded by all this crazy shit. It's fucking wild.
Lance, say hi. This is my buddy Lance.
Hey. How you
Hey,
doing?
Lance.
All right, that's my dude. But you definitely put that in. Lance and I are keeping sane in Bisbee, Arizona, for sure. We're trying to keep it going. Ask me some more questions, Doyle, if you have them. I would love to hear.
Let's see.
If you don't,
What was it like recording the Houseboy album at Bettino's?
awesome. I fucking love Patino. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. He's the weirdest dude. That fucking Adam's apple. There's nothing like it on the planet. that goddamn Adam's apple, man. I mean, I always wondered how somebody could survive without getting hit in the fucking throat and not dying. And dude, Patino's. I love Parsippany driving up the hill to his dad's house.
Oh man, I remember that. Just being on Route 10, making a right before that little mall thing.
Powder mill.
Powder mill, yes. And it was they were right at the top. They were like were they the cul-de-sac? It was like 4 houses and that was it. And then you'd go to Powder Mill, right?
Yeah, no. It was the right-hand turn right before you make the turn into the Powder Mill Commons. And you go up there, and that's a stone's throw from my parents' house. I delivered pizza up there fucking for years.
Really?
From Marriott.
Your parents lived right? Yeah. Well, I remember I had after
Not stones.
right before the last Lanemeyer tour, I did landscaping, and I was in Randolph, so we would do houses off Dover Chester, off of Shogum. So when you're saying all this stuff, I'm just going back to when I was mowing. I fucking hated that summer because I fucking hated landscaping. God damn it, so much. But that's where we were the whole time. So I'm trying to think of that entire area.
We're in Shogum Lake, which was obviously like it was a 7-minute drive to get to Route 10, and then once you're on Route 10, everything's a stone's throw. So I was off on the lake in Shogum, but I mean, I call everything stone's throw when you're in Morris County, but
pretty much,
Oh, dude, Patino's house was fun as fuck.
Yeah, but Patino's house. I mean, I think that I remember the first time I remember meeting him in my memory was in his basement when he was building his studio, because his entire basement was just 2x4s that were the structure of where the walls were going to go. And I believe that it was you and me and him and Barker in his for some reason we went there, but my memory, it serves me that you introduced me to him then. I have no idea if that's true, but
makes sense. And and I don't even remember how I met him for the first time. I think it was county. Maybe. Was it? Oh, no, because it must have been in high school, right? No. Were we already graduated?
We were graduated. We were in college because Congress of Cow was happening when I was in high school, and when we graduated, that's when we had the conversation with Jeff, and it was about December of 98 or 97, and he wanted to quit, so then we were trying to figure something out. That's what the whole it wraps around. That's when I went into Hot Topic. I talked to Sean. Sean goes, "Yeah, man, I'm kind of pissed that I heard you're looking for a drummer and you didn't ask me." So I walked out of Hot Topic. I told Barker that because we were all sitting on that ledge. You know that ledge that was right outside?
Right outside. And there's a ramp right behind it.
Yes, the ramp right behind it in Rockaway Mall. So I walked out. I told Barker. Barker jumped off before I even finished the sentence, walked in and talked to Sean. It was like, okay, we're going to try him out. And then we talked to him. Then we got Alan. And then in '98, right in the beginning of '98, we played the Shower with Goats release party, CD release party, and then
Yep, I did that.
Yep,
Yep.
you put that show on?
Yeah. I did the Shower with Goats release. Yeah.
Get the
I
fuck
think
out of here!
if I remember correctly.
Well,
It was either me or Laura. Those are the only two options.
Well, it was in Hightstown. It was in South Jersey. Because we drove down there, played that, and then we drove right after we opened. We left. That's when we opened as we were still Congress of Cow. We left. We drove up to Skaters World, and we played the second half of that night in Skaters World.
Yeah, I did one of the two of those shows. It was either Skaters World. Ricky was in Skaters World a lot, but I was mixing it with him. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did the Heightstown one. I think I did. If I remember,
that's when Avi from Springman rolled out because he put the record out on Springman, and then they had the guy who drew the artwork for Less Than Jake. He drew the artwork for that, and I think I don't know if he was there, but I know Avi flew out for that. Right.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I was involved in some way or another with that whole thing. But yeah. And then I think I just was like, hey, you got to meet this Patino dude. Like, was it maybe I
know I can see us walking down the steps into his dad's house in a Patino's basement, and I could see in the distance where he had his the studio before all the walls were up and shit. But I think you were the one who introduced me because we were smoking butts down there.
Yeah, and Guinness, drinking Guinness and shit. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I gotta talk to David. I gotta talk to him, but I'm pretty sure it was either CCM or Hot Topic or the mall. It was either the Rockaway Mall or it was CCM where me and Patino met. It was one of the two of those.
Yeah.
And again, hit it off and just was like, you got fucking weird hair and you're skinny and you fucking like music. And like we were talking about 20 hours ago, you just somebody like that and you just make a fucking relationship with him and that was it. And he was close.
Well, my favorite thing about Patino is that when I was getting married, I was living in Hoboken, and we wanted to be in she wanted to be in Morristown, close to family and stuff, and I was like, that's cool. So when we went there, Patino was living there. I called him. I was like, hey man, me and my fiance or girlfriend at the time, whatever, we want to move to Morristown. So he took us around Morristown. We ended up finding a place. We moved there, and then I reconnected with him again, and we hung out all the time. So even right when this fucking shit hit, him and my buddy Mike Graham were going to come to... They had booked flights to come to Raleigh 2 weeks ago. They were going to be here, and we were supposed to party for the whole fucking weekend. Like, that's how long... And then they couldn't. They had to cancel it because of this shit. But, like, that's how long... Since that moment in time to this day, like, me and Dave, like, will either be around each other all the fucking time or not. But, like, I still... love that fucking guy to death, and he will just always be just coming in and out of my life, but we have this connection where I can just text him or message him or ask him questions about shit, and it's like it never skips a beat.
Yeah, he's a fucking weirdo. I love him. He's got so many phases in his life, and his photography is killer. And that studio with Houseboy, like recording down there, was fun as fuck, man. I just remember because it was my hometown, bringing Ace and Brett into. I think I might have been living in Phillipsburg at that time with the band, or it might have been
yeah you were, because we played that show with you guys in that house with Nooner.
That was my house in Phillipsburg in the basement. Yeah.
No, it wasn't even in the basement. It was in the fucking living room because there was.
Oh yeah, the fucking
There was a step up or something. There was I don't know what that's called when it's like 3 steps up or something, but it was either that or what was it called?
3 steps up.
Well, it's like when you're in the same room, but it's like
I don't know, Doyle.
God damn it!
I'm just drinking whiskey, dude.
Be fucking domestic for a second. I think they called it like a sunken room or something. But no, I remember like we played in your fucking living room in that house with Nooner and you guys.
Yeah. That was the Peaberg house, which was, man, I wish this podcast could go like the before and after. You should make a before and after podcast.
Who knows? Maybe I will.
Oh, that would be killer, man. Like, go back to all your interviews, but you don't have to do it with me because we're already doing the after. But like, you could do the after with like everybody else and just be like, all right, this is the scene now from
Yeah. Everyone's like, well, this is the job I worked at, and I fucking hate it. I'm on marriage number 3, and I fucking hate it.
Nobody would care. Everybody would be like, yeah, all right, this guy's a fucking loser.
It'd be called This Is the Sad.
The sad scene now.
This is the podcast that no one wants to fucking listen to because it's real right now.
Yeah. But yeah, no, dude, Patino's house, man. I mean, that's a memory that sticks with me hard. Sean's fucking house is a memory that sticks with me fucking hard.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania sticks with me hard, and going up to Montreal with Bigwig and Monkey and the Humble, Del Vecchio, that sticks with me hard. I've got a couple of those, like, just, those past booking shows outside of just the Legion halls, which we can talk about for hours and hours.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, outside of all that stuff, the shit that happened on the outside is definitely a big part of my life, man. And Patino's house, dude, I fucking loved going over there, man. It was a dark basement. I mean, let's get real.
Well, he had the Christmas lights on with the Swingers.
Yeah.
The movie The Swingers. Poster up, and he had the drum set in front of it, so we'd practice there, and then we would just drink beers, and that was just, I mean, like, to people listening, unless you were really there, it doesn't, like, it can connect in some way where you can be remembering your friend's house from back then, and it's so specific. It's not like, and when I talk about that time where we were like, we were partying and stuff, but it's not like we were like doing blow or like I don't know, maybe people were in the background, but like that wasn't but that wasn't the party part that we remembered. It was the experience of it all, and the conversations are like connecting with people, and that was it. It wasn't, we did this, and then we went to this house and burned it the fuck down, or we trashed the shit and had a complete anarchy. Like Del Vecchio's parties would be 30, 40 people start off, everyone show up with beers, and we drink, and then everyone would just people would be in the living room, like having conversation. People would be upstairs playing guitar. And then I remember when Alkaline Trios, Maybe I'll Catch Fire came out, and radio was new to all of us, and we were playing that up in Del Vecchio's bedroom while everyone's fucking robo-tripping their faces off, and then you could leave there and go downstairs, and people were in the kitchen smoking weed, and then you go in the basement, and then everyone was like, people were jamming out, and it was just like, this is incredible.
Dude, I mean, I saw Bigwig in Del Vecchio's basement with Dan playing drums. Like, it fucking was amazing, dude. Like, it was fucking killer, and it wasn't a Legion Hall. And I think that what you just said is all part of hopefully what this podcast is about. And hopefully people can understand that are listening, is that there was shit going on all the time.
Yeah. Once
you became friends with everybody. Everybody was doing weird shit in Jefferson, at Hackettstown, fucking Heightstown, Bordentown, all over Jersey. But people were doing all kinds of weird shit because of the fucking scene, because we all were just like, hey, man, do you want to hang out this weekend? Sure. Where? At my parents' house because they're going away for a fucking weekend? Yeah. All right. That sounds cool. And then, all right, I'm going to book a show on Wednesday, and all those same fucking people are playing in bands are going to play that show. And it was all of that, man. I mean, the scene was all of that. The music was the catalyst, the Legion Halls, the Knights of Columbus's, Bootin', fucking Wayne, Skaters World, just all of. We can sit here and list 3 fucking Knights of Columbus's, Legion Halls, and whatever in every town all over Jersey was the catalyst for all of that, man. Like for all of our lives in the late 90s and like early 2000s. It was the firecracker, and we just like Benson and Blanda and fucking Sean and Patino and Del Vecchio and fucking Gabe and Scott Dicker and Heiner. And I mean, I could go on and on and on about all the people that I could list and sound cool, but it wasn't about being cool. It was just that we all finally figured out a fucking place that we could all just get back to. And the scene and the shows was kind of like the regroup of all of that chaos.
Exactly. That's exactly what was. And this is the first time out of doing all of these conversations where for me, selfishly, personally and selfishly, I'm talking about my experiences. I can completely see where everyone listening is taking that and the names that you just spit off, but they have their own references of who that is, or they have their own party of that makes them remember that moment for them, because they could be like, well, DeVecchio, they weren't there, but this reminds me of blah blah blah's house, and we did this, and I remember this person, and we did this, or I remember this girl or guy that like I connected with, or I thought about, and because of these lyrics, and that's like where you tapped into like emotion for like the first time and made it very clear of what you wanted to be, or it just made you happy. And
fuck yeah, man.
Yeah, and that's why I love it. I mean, yeah, that's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say about that.
Well, dude, hopefully we can fucking continue this off fucking air at some point, because I know that we could probably talk about upstate, and we could talk about the West Coast, and we could talk about the fucking scenes all over the world that are doing it. And I Doyle, man, I fucking hope that we can meet up one time and just drink craft beer in some fucking bar in Raleigh or wherever the fuck, and just like shoot the shit off air, man.
Yeah,
it'll be fun.
It'll be fun. Are you gonna be traveling out in this area?
Yeah.
Like after all this shit fucking finally dissipates?
I don't know, man. I mean, I just, I don't have a real answer to it. I'm a changing bud all the time. I mean, I've been looking to buy something out here. I love Arizona. I love the landscape. I like hiking.
Sean was saying that. Sean was saying Arizona is his new favorite place because of, like, it's clean, everyone's friendly, the weather's perfect.
I mean, well, there's still an attitude, and there's still people that fucking are proud. Bisbee's a killer fucking town. It's got a lot of creativity. It's got a lot of fucking personality. Doug Stanhope is the reason that I came into town in the first place. He lives here.
No shit.
I don't know if you ever listened to Doug, but his podcast while I was truck driving, he talked about he lives literally fucking down the road. You can spit to his house. He's got a fun house here, and that was the main reason I wanted to come here. I was traveling with my buddy Jeff, who has a van also, and he does online work. He's staying at a homestead south of Arizona where I was staying for like a month before I came out here. And I don't know, man. I mean, I just don't know. I'm looking to, play music. I still love playing music. I still want to go back to St. Pete. I mean, St. Pete, I lived there for 6 years, and the Tampa Bay fucking punk rock scene is awesome. The fucking hardcore scene is fucking killer. The punk rock scene is killer. The art scene is killer in Tampa Bay. I fucking love it there. I like fishing. So I'm just trying to figure out where I want to end up permanently. I mean, I had a Class C before this that my girlfriend from England came over for 3 months. I took her across the country before I moved to England. And I'm just, I'm riding the wave right now and trying to figure out what the next step is, man.
I like it, dude. I mean, I'm on Google Maps right now. I'm looking at Bisbee. It looks like a mixture. Bisbee. It looks like a mixture of Wilkes-Barre, Portland, and the mountains. But like,
all right,
together.
It was a mining town. It was a mining town way back in the day. It was like kind of a layover from Tombstone.
It's like, I mean, granted, this is all Google Maps imagery, but it's like all old buildings, but with rolling hills, and it looks like it's got like character and shit. I mean,
tons of
also
character.
I'm seeing this on fucking the internet, and you guys are like super close to the border too, right?
Yeah, me and Lance, who said hi before, we took a ride down to the border. I jumped in his car. I mean, we're 7 to 10 minute drive to the border.
Wow.
To
Wild.
Naco. And yeah, it's a border town too. So there's a lot of it's just a mix of awesome people, man. And I get fucking really bored with white people. I just get really fucking bored with them. And I love, we grew up outside of Manhattan, dude. Like we grew up in a place, and I grew up in a place going to Manhattan, to a place where there's character and there's a lot of history behind. I'm Jewish, and religion, race, creed, and Bisbee's got an awesome mix. I've met a couple of killer people, and yeah, it's a fucking cool town, man. It's just a really cool town.
It looks like that. Almost. Have you been to Asheville at all in North Carolina?
Yeah, I love Asheville. Asheville.
I mean, again, from the pictures, it looks like it's like an Asheville of Arizona almost.
Yeah, except there's a lot of white people in Asheville. It's all white.
I mean, besides ethnicity, it's like just the I'm looking more at the building structure. That's like the pure thing I'm looking
Asheville.
at.
Asheville's gorgeous. Got killer bluegrass. Asheville's got awesome food. I love Asheville too, but it's Bisbee too. It gets cold at night.
This is a cool.
And then you can go up to Flagstaff, where it's 8,000, and you can get a foot of snow way up in the mountains in Arizona. So yeah, I don't know. It's just a gnarly place, and I think the bottom line is, to answer your question before, I have no fucking idea what I'm going to do in 3 months. I'm going to figure it out.
Well, I think that's how it should be. So I commend that, or I applaud that. I applaud that because I think
right on.
I think it's fantastic. Well, okay, I'm gonna end this because we're at 2:50. It's 2 questions. One. I always ask, what would you like to plug? It could be something that you are doing, or it could be about someone that you know who's doing something and you want to give them a little spotlight.
All right, so I'm not going to give Lance the spotlight, even though I just did, and he's sitting at the table, and I got a lot of pressure. But I'm gonna spotlight anybody that's listening. Search deeper than you think you're supposed to search for underground creativity, art, music. Keep doing what we did 20 years ago. Keep doing that. Keep all that same pride in DIY, that same pride in something. I'm not going to give you any websites because I don't want to put somebody on a pedestal and knock anybody else down. But anybody that's doing art, photography, anything having to do with outside of the system, anybody that's trying really hard to make a living, making other people happy and fucking satisfied, go search for it. Give it as much as you can, even if it's a fucking 10 minutes or 20 minutes a day. Open that CD book again, read the lyrics like we used to do. And yeah, just try and listen. Keep your fucking ears open for new shit that you wouldn't have before thought of.
Okay. I love it. I like that plug. I think it's like one of my favorite plugs that anyone has done. All right, last question. What scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
100% what we were talking about earlier in the interview that I still hold true. Like, the middle fingers are strong, but understand where you stand. The scene ethics, the shit I learned from the scene was definitely like, don't take shit from anybody. Question fucking everything. It's cliche as hell, but keep your fucking ears open and keep your shit to the ground. Like, understand the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. And, I would say, like, I learned from the scene traveling, like from touring with bands. I learned honestly from the scene that like, go fucking see other people's worlds and learn from it, but also understand that like you can do it on your own. You can have your own fucking way of living, and don't take shit seriously. Don't take anything seriously. Like, I don't mean like not your family or your art or your, you know, I just mean everything with a grain of salt. And I learned that from the scene and from growing up in Jersey, like Gabagool, fucking Sopranos, and yeah, dude, like honestly, man, like, you know, we live in a place where we're allowed to question shit, right? Like, we won't get our heads cut off. And if somebody passed away, or something that you think is bullshit, or, you know, something that you think is fucking wrong, question it, man. Question it. I learned that. That's the ethic I took from the scene, man. Like, question everything, and don't be a fucking pussy. Just step up and question it, man, and speak the fucking truth and do it yourself. Don't expect anybody to do it for you. And it's not about success. You're never going to actually win anything. You're just going to go to sleep good at night, you know?